Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for tuning in because tonight is the night. We are finally there. We have made it all the way to the great grand finals. Two teams remaining out of the most competitive field of 10 we have ever seen in Korean contenders. I am Matt Pixie Carroll. Joining me here for what is going to be two nights of epic best of sevens is, of course, Kevin Averill Walker. And how are we doing on night number one, my man?
Yeah, it's going to be a really good one. This is 2021's first season finals for here for Contenders Korea. Had some great playoffs so far. Step ladder format. It's been an interesting season of a few changes in terms of getting through the new format as we've been kind of talking about. But we'll get to know that kind of new format in just a little bit in terms of how the entire season came to be, how we got to these kind of two teams here. But we've had this kind of top four talking point scenario across the entire season. Four of the best teams in Contenders Korea have been absolutely on a different level. The other teams have been really good as well, but our top four teams have been absolute dynamite. And O2 Blast have had this long journey coming through from fourth seed all the way now to the grand finals. Talon's waiting there for them. And Talon, I mean, this could be their very first victory as well. O2 Blast are a champion from season one of last year. Talon have been here for at least a season now, and they're still looking for their first victory, and they might get it tonight. In fact, they might get it over the course of the next two nights, including this one.
I think that's the really exciting thing, right? These are two teams who you could fairly look at and say you could want either to win it, right? You kind of touched on O2 Blast, sort of a former returning champion in a sense, especially this time last year, and then also in the more immediate sense, having just had this great grand run up through this gauntlet, this step ladder, this bubble race format. Two teams made a really serious run for it. One was Runaway, then O2 Blast stopped them short. Now it's been O2 Blast's turn to rocket up the standings, beating out T1, beating out CC. They've gone all the way from that fourth place all the way up to what could yet be a first place finish. And on the other hand, you got Talon, the sort of prince that was promised, this top dog from the Pacific region, moving its way over to Korea. And they've just yet to find that success, that win that they looked like they might have been in contention for last year. And now it is right there. It is right in front of them. But O2 Blast are not going to go down quiet.
Yep. So we started out with what 10 teams coming into Korea season one for 2021. We've had a lot of returning teams, some new teams coming through from trials as well. The academy teams rejoining the fold and working through some big up and downs. Yeah, we've had Runaway coming in where they had a really rough regular season, came back really strong for the playoffs, ending in fifth place here. T1 who had a really rough year last year overall, and then being able to, I guess, finish pretty high considering where the results were previously. They came in third place here after losing up to O2 Blast just a week previously. A lot of academy teams, Gen G, unfortunately didn't have a great season, so they got some time to work on that. CC as well coming back, and CC working through some stuff with their own. I'll correct myself. I guess CC came third, and T1 came fourth overall. So that's kind of how we're rounding out a top four here. And obviously, O2 Blast and Talon still in the fold here as Talon looking for their first ever victory in Contenders Korea. Obviously, the previous champion coming through from the Pacific region a year ago. O2 Blast having won the season about a year ago from now, actually. So O2 Blast have been regularly this kind of opening season, first half of the year kind of team that
Mhm.
shows a lot of dominance there. They're still kind of reeling from the loss of previous season two of 2020, not making gauntlet, all that kind of stuff. They got past the teams that did, and now they're facing up against a talent that also kind of looked really strong last season, didn't quite uh, meet, I would say, their expectation or the potential, considering
Mhm.
they were first seed, and then unfortunately they dropped out in the playoffs without making it to a grand final. So I mean, it's the differences this season is that I'd say Runaway for the first time we're not actually seeing in a final, which feels a little bit weird.
Yeah.
But we are getting O2 Blast back and Talon are kind of at least playing up to the potential that we thought they were going to be able to last year. We'll see if they can get even further than that.
Yeah, for sure. Both of these teams tonight and tomorrow night are kind of playing for a win that they failed to accomplish at some other point in their recent careers as teams. And the reason I say tonight and tomorrow night, obviously, the way this actually works, we're not just playing a single series here, winner takes all. We play two best of sevens across tonight and tomorrow night. The team that wins has to win both best of sevens or first to four matches. If one team has won one each when we get to the end of the second night, we do have a tiebreaker. So there's that extra layer here as well. You have to win twice in a row. You can't just scrape through. You have to show consistent dominance over these two nights. It also means there is that very real possibility that one team could come out swinging, absolutely demolish the other tonight, but in that 24-hour turnaround time, the losing team, could come back, claw their way back in the second series, take us to that tiebreaker, and still take it out. The door remains open right up to the end here. And I doubt we're going to see a situation where one of these teams just cleanly 4-0s the other twice in a row. I would be gobsmacked if that ended up being our result.
Will take a lot of effort for sure, and it's a. And I don't know if we talked about this part yet, but there is a tiebreaker over towards the end. But if both teams have a kind of 1-0 score, 1-0 being they've won one of these first four matches, you have to win both to be the grand champion. If you've only won one of them and the other team wins the other one, we will be playing a sudden death control map to end the second evening tomorrow night to decide who our grand champion is. So yeah, if we go 1-1, we play one more map to decide it all. But for now, let's go ahead and move on. Talon, you can obviously see get straight into the first seed here. O2 Blast, they've had to work their way through. Interleague is what we're talking about here, and this is going to kind of go through the actual scorelines that we've had since day one of the playoffs. So Runaway started out in seed 6, BM started in seed 7. Runaway nearly made that miracle run happen. We talked plenty about Runaway's playoff buff, and that definitely came true big time as they get 3-0 back-to-back in day 1 and day 2. They meet up against O2 Blast, and honestly, Runaway could have been the team in this situation now. Sure, Runaway would have to still go through T1 and CC, but O2 Blast, getting that win over Runaway, have now kind of taken that power in the playoffs buff and have taken that all the way to the grand final.
And yeah, you make a really great point there. I mean, you look at the score lines across this whole thing so far. The unequivocal closest is the O2 Blast versus Runaway match, bang smack in the middle there. And even then, the scoreline belies how actually close it was. It wasn't 7 maps, it was 8 maps. We had a draw in there as well. It was a real tough one. And you sort of look at that and you can imagine, given that O2 Blast then went on to get a 4-1 against T1, far more one-sided than what they did against Runaway. You can't help but feel like if Runaway had won that match against O2 Blast, they could have just as easily dispatched of T1, quite possibly dispatched of CC, and themselves made it all the way into this grand final. But alas, no such luck. And that's why I think it's fair to say it was almost like a transfer of momentum, because O2 Blast's run up to this grand finals has looked about as good as Runaway's run was up to that very same point. It's also why I think we've at this point very well established that we're not just talking about top 4 this season anymore. We are talking about there being a top 5. An entire half of the teams in the overall pool of 10 are top caliber teams, good enough that on any good day you could feasibly see them as being grand finals material. So the fact that these are the specific 2 teams that have made it here tells you everything you need to know about how hard they have had to work for it.
It's been a difficult season. I mean, it's been a long one. It's been, I think, we're the last region to end the grand final here. As long every other region has kind of ended their first season already. China's actually already onto their second one, and for Korea right now, a bit of practice even still for a team like O2 Blast, who just came through second place in Next Cup Spring yesterday, last night even. It was pretty close. It was 24 hours ago. They actually lost to Team CC 4-2, so it's the same result that CC got versus O2 Blast, but the other way around. That's what CC looked like with Spectra back on the lineup and O2 Blast. Good practice right before the grand finals. Talon wasn't part of that tournament, but now Talon got to take a bit of a good look at O2 Blast, and they've had plenty of time to look at O2 Blast over the course of the few weeks they've had playing over in the playoffs. Talon straight to seed 1, straight into grand finals. They play the interleague game. It's been like 3 weeks since we've seen Talon Esports since their interleague game. That interleague game comes from the perspective of, having played first seed versus first seed between groups A and B, second seed versus second seed between groups A and B again for the actual seedings, where seedings in this particular season mean so much, being that Talon have had a long time to prep for the scam, a long while to really address who their opponent was going to be, and a long time to just kind of hide their strats, hide all the tricks up their sleeves for a couple of nights of first to fours, where O2 Blast now get the final test. This will be the final boss. They've gone through the entire gauntlet. They've run through the dungeon, and here we are on the final stage, on the final level.
And it's been an absolute road to redemption as well for O2 Blast. When I say that, what I mean is, we talked the whole season long about that top 4, the 2 best teams in both groups being O2 Blast and CC in Group A, T1 and Talon in Group B. And eventually it had to shake out. It wasn't until the very last week of those group stages that those teams actually played each other within their groups. Immediately after that, they got slung into the interleague where they had to play across the groups as well. And 2 weeks after the end of the regular season, the dust had settled. O2 Blast, having just been in contention for the first place seed, found themselves all the way down in 4th place. That's why I say they've really had to earn their path here. On the other end of that, you've got Talon who go undefeated during their group stage. They win their interleague matchup. They get that first place seed. That's where they put in the work. This is where that has put them now. This is what they've earned for themselves. It sets the scene, to my mind, for what could well be our most exciting grand finals to date.
Go ahead and make the teams here. O2 Blast coming up first, and well, O2 Blast. So actually, don't know who's going to come up first. The point is, uh, O2 Blast is now. What do we got to start with? Although proper Yahoo Max. Okay, so no Jumbin to start things out with, which means no Wrecking Ball for map number one. Obviously, Talon the High Sea will be picking map number one here. Although starting out, Sesame, we're going to be seeing some Although Echo coming through. Probably going to be playing a lot of that Tracer. No Kilo until second map onwards. Vindime's not going to come back until that stage as well. So plenty of substitutions that O2 Blast could be making. Looking over towards the next Spring Cup as well. Probe did get a decent amount of playing time, but I'm not too sure if that was because O2 Blast were wanting to just give their, I guess, the one sub on their roster that hasn't really played a lot, a little bit more game time, a little just, a little bit of practice in there, a little bit of stage presence, a little bit of official match presence as well. But I'm expecting pretty much that Although Proper and Kilo, specifically Proper and Kilo, to be taking the reins of this O2 Blast roster today in the grand final.
Yeah, it tends to be the way that they do things there. And as you kind of mentioned, they got the main tank flex as well, just when they do want to run the Wrecking Balls specifically. Otherwise, we're likely to see Yahoo in. That one tends to be a little bit more sort of map dependent more than it is game mode dependent. Having Although in specifically is very much a thing they do on control before bringing Kilo in so that they can run that the Ash Tracer especially. And with that all being kind of covered and dusted off, we've seen this team so many times now over the last couple of weeks, but the team we have not seen for so very long now is, of course, Talon. Time to get familiar with them. And it's a team I gotta say I know and love. I certainly hope the audience knows and loves them as well.
Talon Esports, first seed, coming through, straight to grand finals. No holds barred, 6 players, no substitutions. A lot of players from previous seasons, Element Mystic now into the roster, a couple of returning faces. If you're coming late into the season, you're just here for the grand finals, you're really trying to figure out who Talent Esports are, I would say pretty much off the bat, 3 players to look out for, 3 players that I would consider to be top of the region, top in their respective roles across Korea. And that would be Develop Kellen and Chorong specifically, where Develop is most likely now, I'd say, fighting for contention for either number one, tied with Kilo, or just straight up number one for hit scan snipers. Specifically, looking towards Kellen as the clear favorite for the main tanks right now. No other main tank in Korea is really holding up a torch. And then, of course, Chorong, who has, I would say, for a couple seasons in a row now, being the clear standout main support, playing everything across the board that you would expect, especially powerful on that Lucio. It really does remind me of, I've said this a few times on broadcast, but before Lee Jae-gon left right away to go to Shanghai Dragons, when he was still on, specifically Runaway, but even, when he went to Shanghai Dragons, Chorong does remind me like a young version of that. Obviously, the good parts and maybe less defeating, but Talon Esports overall super powerful across the board. Everybody is pretty good. Just because I had to bring it up, just because I know
Yeah, no,
people are gonna say, be like, yeah, well, what about the time Lee Jae-gon did this and just jumped off the map? I'm like, yeah, well, we'll forget about that time for now. Just think about the good ones, and that's what Chorong is.
Yeah, Chorong is, Lee Jae-gon on his best day. Chorong is that every day. That's the way to put
Hopefully,
it, right?
we'll
Yeah,
see.
hopefully, yeah. And look, my eye is inevitably drawn to two specific places. Obviously, I think we can talk till Kingdom Come about about how the DPSs are going to square off against one another, especially once we get Kilo and Proper in the mix for O2. But moreover that, actually, my eye specifically is drawn to Kellen up against Yahoo and Junbin, both depending on who O2 Blast actually have in on any given map. You could talk about those DPSs, sure, and yeah, sometimes Proper absolutely pops off. I got to say, Heesang and Develop both have that same capacity. Outside of just kind of going nuts and having an absolute run of kills, it's more about what your tanks, especially your main tank, can actually set up for you, what they can enable for you in those situations as a DPS. And that's where my eye is drawn. Yeah, look, we're going to see a lot of great plays out of all 4 of the DPSs, indeed, all 5 of the DPSs that we're liable to see across tonight. But watch more who is able to get set up more often and what the DPSs are able to do with that space, with that capacity to play the great game of Overwatch. That is where, in my opinion, the match tonight and the match tomorrow night will be decided.
I'm also looking out for Heesang as well in terms of this kind of Tracer 3-way we have going on between Heesang, Proper, and also previously Innovation when he was, we're talking about the 3 teams that have ended up in the top 3 here. My eyes, those are the three top traces, and maybe you could give some special mention to, teams that aren't here and players on teams that aren't here. For example, Stalker was a big factor over in the Gauntlet, but unfortunately, Genji dropped out pretty early, and we didn't get to see too much of Stalker this season. So, given that our top three teams had probably the top three traces here, he sang proper and also innovation. Who was the best trace out of those three? Has been a bit of a talking point. I've said proper for a while, but he's saying comes to the challenge right now. Develop as well comes to the challenge. Kilo versus Develop in terms of who gets to be the best hit scan sniper. It's another one of those really interesting discussions. So across the board
Mhm.
for these two teams, you have a lot of players where they are definitely in contention to be number one in Korea in this specific role. I mean, we're looking towards the fact that Finn versus Vigilante as well. I think mostly we've been looking over towards Finn. Got a little bit more practice in here. Did decent amount of work last season as well. The previous seasons, one with O2 Blast previously. The guy that put Neko onto main support when Finn joined the roster as well. So, that's not a small feat to do. So,
Mhm.
we've had some really insane players. I mean, even looking over towards CC, I'd say they had some members that were in contention for number one, like Spectra on that specific projectile pick was so good. And now you have Aldo coming up, and versus a team like this, it'll be Heesang playing the Echo as well. So there is some shared peer pulls between what Heesang's doing, what Aldo's doing, what Proper's doing. There's the Tracers there, there's the Echoes there, and you better hope for a team like Talon as well, where they have six players, three of which I think are really top class, right at the top in terms of number one for their specific roles. Can they make it work in terms of flexibility? Because you better hope they can play pretty much everything. And I would say, based on the fact that they are number one seed right now, they probably are within that.
Yeah.
But O2 Blast have a lot of they have a lot of players they can definitely lean into, and a lot more different sides of O2 Blast that they can still show for this tournament.
It's actually something that we've talked a little bit about more in O2 Blast's last couple of matches, just because of how it set it to fall in terms of compositions. Obviously, the brawl question was the big one across their match against T1, um, where flexibility was shall we say a question mark that existed on T1 side of things, not on O2 Blast side of things, to be completely clear. And then when we came into the matchup against CC, it was more just it felt like O2 Blast could kind of play just about everything that little bit more competently than CC, and that's to my mind reflected in the scoreline. And as you say, I don't think we're going to see any kind of question about that here. I think it's going to be very, very clear cut. We expect both teams to be equally as comfortable on any given team comp, and then be especially comfortable on whatever preferences do exist. I feel like the differences aren't going to get made on that meta macro level. It's going to get made all within the actual course of the maps themselves. And that to me is exciting because that's what makes for great games. That's what makes for great Overwatch. It's what makes for those extremely memorable moments and those plays you could point to as being absolutely enormous swing points. And so often in these sorts of series, the map can absolutely swing on a dime multiple times. Now, look, I could be completely wrong. We could actually roll out tonight, and I don't know, maybe Talon forces dive and are terrible at it for some reason. I'd be stunned, but like I said, my hunch here is we're going to see two extremely evenly matched teams.
Yeah, I wouldn't count CC out of that conversation. CC just beat O2 Blast in Grand Finals 4-2, and they actually had Spectre. That was the biggest problem for CC, is they were missing one of their key players there, so you never
Yeah,
got to
for
see
sure.
the wide range of what CC could actually bring to the table. And had Spectre been here, maybe it's CC versus Talon in the Grand Finals, but that's a multiverse theory. That's an alternate timeline where CC did make it here. For O2 Blast, who have been this phenomenal team on especially Tracer Ash dive, that's been their bread and butter. That's been, in my opinion, their strongest composition. Brawler has been their weakest so far. That was clearly shown in the next cup as well. And so for Talon, if Talon, are able to bring through a really strong brawl, tanked O2 Blast, those kind of maps, like we saw what T1 were able to do, at least for the most part, or at least for the starting part of that series in the playoffs, where T1 played against O2. Nepal was very one-sided in T1's favor. O2 Blast really struggled on that one. Talon had Talon are the kind of team that could maybe really work towards that kind of strategy as well. You could definitely have something like Heesang May develop over onto the McCree, but I think actually when you look across the board in terms of what heroes these players are actually really good at, you look across the heroes on the players rather on Talon specifically. Again, Heesang Tracer, develop on Ash, and I won't be surprised with this specific grand final. At least today, we'll see what happens tomorrow with the adaptations both teams make. But at least today, wouldn't be surprised if most of the games end up being a lot of Tracer Ash versus Tracer Ash in a specific mirror, and you get to get the real battle between Heesang versus Proper, Kilo versus Develop, and you get to see who's better on which role.
I mean, how many ways can I say excited? I'm running out of synonyms. I didn't actually really use many in the first place. I'm enraptured. I'm enthralled. I am, what's the word for being in anticipation? There's a word for it. It's just on the tip of my awareness right now. I can't quite place it, but
And the word.
yeah, I'm anticipating remembering the word. But yeah, at the end, this is what we've been waiting for. This is what the whole thing leads up to. Everything we've been talking about, the strength of the teams, the strength of the overall pool, the field teams this particular season, the questions about how it was all going to work out. I mean, the majority of those questions have been answered now. There's that one big question, and underneath it are all those little questions, the little questions, like a lot of what you've been talking about, who's the best on this particular hero, who's best in role, and this sort of thing, and all of those little things. But really the big question is, who's better? Who's going to win two best of sevens in a row? Who is that team that can do it not just once, not just but twice? And that to me is maybe that last little nugget of excitement that I have in my mind right now, is the fact that consistency is going to be put to the test just as much as explosivity in this grand finals. Usually we do have that one and done kind of situation. And look, it's very rare that one team is just that little bit better on the night. They come in absolutely hot and the other team doesn't, but it certainly can happen. You can't rule it out. Whereas with this, just having it split over those 2 days, that is where that consistency is really, really going to matter. And I got to say, these are two teams that have demonstrated a serious amount of that consistency. O2 Blast have not tripped up even once in this playoff so far. Talon, on the other hand, did not trip up at all across the entire regular season and interleague. And one of those two teams has to stumble in the next two nights.
And, it could go to 1-1 as well in terms of one team winning one night, one team wins the other night. We go to that sudden death control and it ends on just one control map deciding everything, your entire grand finals up to 2 first to 4s. You have the case where, you look at O2 Blast history, they've had a couple more losses than Talon. Talon have gone completely undefeated here, which is the most important thing to note. We have not seen Talon drop a single match at all. So could today be it? Could tomorrow be it? Could this grand finals be where Talon actually do fall? O2 Blast, can they really get to the top of this mountain? Can they summit in time? Because they dropped to Team CC in Group A. They lost to T1 over in the third seed tiebreaker for the Interleague as well. And they got revenge on both teams. Now, there's just one team standing in the way. And the one matchup that we haven't seen, one of the two matchups that we haven't seen T1 versus CC. But Talon versus O2 is one of the matchups between the top 4 teams that we have really no metric to go off of, because they've not played each other the entire season so far. But beyond that, even further, in terms of map pool for Talon Esports, don't really have information on that one, because they were never in a position where they were really picking maps. They picked the first map, and look, they pick, I don't know who picked the first map in the first seed tiebreaker, but here, they're going to Lijiang Tower, they're the highest seed. But beyond that, there's no data at all. I think we got a fairly clear picture of where O2 want to go, but for Talon Esports, completely open.
Exactly. The question really is, where do you take these guys? And as you kind of hinted at there, higher seed picks the first map. That's Talon picking Lijiang Tower. After this, the loser will pick the subsequent maps until we have somebody who has won a full 4. If we have ties in there, we keep going, as we had with Runaway versus O2 Blast. And with that, there's nothing left to do but watch the base gates open as we roll on into Lijiang Tower.
And here it is. Grand Final, Season 1, Contenders Korea for 2021. Talon versus O2 Blast and Lijiang. Map number 1 is underway. We are out the gates and it will be brawl on both sides. Sigma Ryan versus Diva Ryan and Symmetra on both sides.
Exciting as the rollout is all kind of there. Teams just kind of piling into one another, but it is O2 with a slightly cleaner rotation towards the point. Max, so in a whole world of hurt, the counter trade looking to come through onto Kellen. A little bit dicey really for both teams.
It's going to be Kellen going down, traded for the side of O2 Blast, where advantage slightly goes in the way of Talon, at least for now. No ultimates are coming up too quickly. Develop will nearly have the photon barrier for the next fight. Neutral has been secured. Cap will be found. Attack does come back on a Sigma as well, so dropping the Diva for now as we head into the second engagement. Probably doesn't want to give away the Symmetra. Understands that Develop's still onto this one. Prob's on 77% anyway, so close enough to still be quite relevant into the next fight. Biggest difference to me will be coming through with the fact that Blizz is nearly available for Isang, but although is pretty far away.
Yeah, not exactly the most comfortable position to be in. But overall, probably going to be the first to go down despite the ultimates being deployed, and it's an absolute clean wash here for Talon.
That's that Blizzard advantage coming on through. Photon Barrier being dropped, prop the first one down. That's most of your damage gone. Kellen attacking 3 kills over the course of that fight. Pretty close to the Earthshatter as it was coming in. It was, what, about nearly 70%? 3 kills. You have the Earthshatter now. Vigilante drops down, and Matrix. Now it's O2 Blast turn to strike. They have everything they were missing previously. They'll even have their own Earthshatter. More importantly, though, Finn is going to look to open this one up with that Matrix. If Talon lands a single Shatter, though, Talon will have this fight down locked. O2 Blast have no good defenses.
Bit of an unfortunate position to find themselves in here.
Good wall.
As again, a light wall to be deployed. It's decent. They've kind of isolated Talon, but can they finish him? Even if they can, Max is already dead anyway. The Immortality Field kind of saving for his bacon for the time being. Does finally go down, and here we go. That's the opening they need. They have the later Immortality Field as well. Just getting the extra kills to clean it up. So O2 Blast finally going to get in control here.
Also did see there as well, Sound Barrier did come through from Chorong, doesn't really end up saving Kellen at the end of the day, frozen up, instantly fragged. I don't even think the Sound Barrier landed on as we get into the following fight though. O2 Blast, you know, they don't too long to get back into action, proper drilling down the last couple of members. I'm gonna resetting here. And we're heading over towards Talon with the actual ultimate advantage coming in as we're just trading ults between both teams. 20% accrued for O2 Blast, but I suspect that Talon, you know, finding one good flex, still waiting for that shadow come from Talon. From Kellen on Talon Esports, and that will put things back over towards Talon as we reach 99.
You can kind of expect here. Talon do potentially have the stuff in hand. It's all down to execution. That's the shatter out from Kellen. It's decent, but he does get bumped back. Now to follow it up with a flux, though. Attack, some slamming, O2 Blast down. Very nicely handled. It's a 1-for-1 so far. You'll be sought to lose Chorong, trying to get the most now out of this amplification. Matrix's attack is really feeling the heat. O2 Blast, on the other hand, looking considerably healthy. Finn clearly looking to deploy his own window. Waiting for that one to come down as finally to be deployed now as the damage just coming across to drop Zag. O2 Blast looking to hold on through this one, getting the later kills. Expensive in the end, but they do retain control of the point.
And both teams end up dropping out. Matrix says it was Vigilante coming down first. He's saying Ekman had a blizzard, but one thing was really interesting about that fight was the cross-section of both of the photon barriers dropping down between Proper and Developer for O2 Blast. Right, they get Chorong down nice and early, and then they start collapsing on Finn's amplification. Matrix comes just a little bit later. Enough O2 Blast to get the damage, and although looking towards a Blizzard, and Max still holding onto a Flux that he didn't use the previous fight, this should be O2 Blast with ultimate advantage here. Talon needs something. They don't quite have Sound Barrier. They're going to need to speed in for a neutral. Talon's quite close to an Earthshatter, but no team has really landed much of an Earthshatter just yet.
Yeah, not a whole lot just yet, exactly. Blast, though, as you say, that ultimate advantage and leading immediately into it with the Gravitic Flux, but not the hardest of Sound Barriers there in response. Develop does have to be saved by the Immortality Field, but nope, the Blizzard's going to be enough, and look at that, 99% here for O2 Blast, despite the solid shatter coming out from Kellen at the last Yahoo is equally as impressive, and O2 Blast were already at a man advantage to the point where closing it out. 5 still alive, the entirety of Talon dead, 176 is the first score.
Nice double support ultimates burned by Talon Esports, but the difference between the DPS ultimates coming through for O2 Blast, and you see specifically the Blizzard just freezes up the entire backline. Proper's Photon Barrier also blocks out a bit of Vigilante's extra damage coming through. The Ant Matrix for the team as well. Kellen doesn't really land much of a shot. I think it was a solo shot onto all those, so really needed something huge, but difficult to do so given the circumstance. Pretty close game, but O2 Blast did have to come back. You have to note that it was O2 Blast that, well, they were at a bit of a deficit to start out with. 70+% being accrued for Talon Esports before O2 Blast started to take the reins, and they kept the reins the entire time. Didn't give the control back over towards Talon Esports and over towards submap number 2, which I do believe is, what is it, Control Center that will be coming up next.
Yeah, looks like it. So a close one to open things out, I've got to say, and just a couple of kind of critical beats in terms of overall execution. You sort of identified that fight right in the middle of there, where Talon had lost control of the point. They came back in, they had a reasonable amount of ultimate. It wasn't really an advantage either way. That was a fight that came down significantly to execution, and that, to my mind, is actually the fight that kind of flipped it overall, because at that point, O2 Blast was ahead and kind of stayed ahead. Talon didn't quite manage to make their way back in. If Talon had won that, they would have immediately been into final fight territory with O2 Blast not really having any time to rebuild, assuming they would have expended ultimates. So as I kind of say, it's not going to come down to the macro. It's not going to come down to the team comps. It's all down on that micro level. We're already seeing that right out the gate.
I mean, yeah, team comps should be fairly similar across the board here. Both teams should be looking over towards Brawl again once we move away from the specific map. I think both teams will eventually prefer to play Tracer Ash, which I still think is going to be the main headline battle between our two teams, specifically over towards the DPS line. You know, both the DPS players on both teams are looking towards #1 player contention in terms of who's good at what role. Proper, I've said multiple times, probably the best player overall in Contenders' career for this season. But his best heroes are on, you know, the Tracers, the Echoes, stuff like that. Not quite on the Symmetras, even though we did see some good plays coming through from Symmetras. Reasonable damage. Probably did die quite early in one of the original fights as well, which definitely did put O2 Blast behind by significant margin. You see Talon Esports able to snowball a bunch of their ultimates for the first couple of fights, getting over towards 70% plus. But once they started losing those ultimates, you give the ultimates back over towards O2 Blast, and they start snowballing on their end. They kind of take us to the 100. So not bad for the opening, I would say, Brawl Mirror, considering
Mhm.
not the best composition that we've seen O2 Blast play in the previous matches they've had. Going over towards Control Center, another opportunity for Talon to kind of force O2 Blast over into a Brawl Mirror. Don't think we'll have to see. I don't know if we're as likely to see Symmetras. I'm more looking towards the possibility of Drunkrats coming up through here. It would depend on where these two teams have their preferences. As we're looking to spawn currently, it is going to be Develop and Proper facing up on the Symmetras again. Both teams very much vying over towards the maze. Is Max going to come through on a Diva or a Sigma? Because previously, O2 started on the Sigma, and it was Talon that started on the Diva. This time it's the other way around, and I lie, it wasn't Control Center, it was actually Night Market, and could be teleporting straight onto point.
O2 Blaster in a fraction of a hair earlier, and that could make all the difference. They had that first ice wall down, but it is Kellen under heat right now. Everyone kind of surviving, time being able to attack. Here we go. Going to be the first casualty in Yahoo, despite eating of the crowd control. The stun, the freeze, Max does get D-Mech, but it's attack going down. That's the real story of it. And with that, O2 Blaster going to be ahead, and at this point, it's going to continue the landslide their way. With any luck as well, Max will actually be able to reset that mech well before the next fight.
And both teams did drop down on Mortality Fields. Pretty similar timings as well as Kellen, and specifically Kellen, they got super low. Their O2 Blast putting all the damage into Kellen. Eventually, when both the Mortality Fields fade, it's Talon that lose their tanks first, and O2 Blast have then a major tank advantage. Proper's doing a ton of damage. He's already got a Photon Barrier up. He's going to clean up everybody that was remaining on Talon Esports, but they don't really have much to work through here. Both teams likely to be using Ant Matrices here. See if Finn goes first. Really, probably are expecting him to go. It's actually Vigilante that pops it.
Pretty much nothing else to work with except actually this Photon Barrier, and with that, Vigilante's kind of getting nothing done with this window, unfortunately, between the barrier and the ice wall. Finn's not exactly getting a whole lot either. Both teams just kind of shooting down range. Ultimately, that does favor O2 Blast because they're the ones accruing percentages. There's two ultimates for one right now. Talon about to come up on rotation.
Finn definitely could have held it. I mean, we're looking towards the situation. I know I was looking maybe towards Finn using it first, but Proper wants to counter with a Photon Barrier. That's acceptable. Vigilante doesn't get too much work done. Shadow comes on through. Max is caught. The Sound Barrier will be there to save from both teams.
Yeah, critical timing. Yahoo frozen up, though, hasn't been able to turn around and try and drop a shadow somewhere. It means Attack is now able to get a flux off, and between all the crowd control, Yahoo just can't get anything done before dying, and that's going to be what Talon will ultimately hinge this successful fight on.
O2 Blast don't get a chance to use the tank ultimates, being after the Sound Barriers coming on in. Yahoo potentially looking for a shadow, but he was just frozen up the entire time. Heesang's Blizzard, the left click coming through from Heesang as well, Talon keeping the tanks under lock. And I was gonna say maybe a fast flip over, but it took two fights, and in that two fights, O2 get themselves 64%, and they still have 4 ultimates because they didn't get to use their tank ultimates. Walk back win with it now. Double Ant Matrices to be used at the start of this one, expecting both Ice Walls and Maze to be popped in as well. Yahoo Shadows only catches Heesang.
Yeah, Yahoo tried to get a bit of a sneaky play across with that, but oh, it's Max just landing an enormous self-destruct that's going to lay it out, actually. And a little bit of an unfortunate quirk of timing there. Max does take a dive over the edge there by way of Charon, so Talon still something to hinge this on after losing those members. Yahoo a little bit low as well, working double time to try to keep him healed up, but no, he's saying it's in it, getting a lot of damage done, although going to drop down as well. Talon, they're going to be able to steer clear of this one, and O2 Blast invested everything they had into that fight.
Yeah, but, you know, I think the Photon Barrier really made a difference there for Talon Esports. They really cut off a lot of the sight lines for O2 Blast, cut off a lot of the damage. I mean, the Blizzard came on through for all though, but doesn't catch enough. Max dropping the self-destruct for a couple of kills. And even beyond that, I mean, Choron getting the D-Mech kill and just booping Max off the side of the map was really the start of that one. And Talon Esports developing coming back on the Doomfist, prep to go. Doomfist actually a decent picker considering, you know, Proper is on the sim, so coming back on the Doom does mean you have capability of just killing Proper. See if they can get that done. Blizzard did come on through.
He nearly just got a slam onto Sanguinar there, actually. He is able to roll away to safety for the time being, but Proper and Yahoo not so lucky. And again, the absence of that main tank is the time and space that these other members need to work with. And with that, Talon now rounding the bed of 90%. O2 Blast actually going for a Doomfist of their own now.
They're running out of time, so probably going to come back and roll in very quickly. I mean, the Sim coming back with no ultimate, not the best in the neutral. Dice develop onto the new Doomfist as well. Might as well double Doomfist, but he can't even touch the point in time. It was actually Proper who was first on, but he doesn't quite get there and doesn't reach his mark.
Little
So
rough,
it's going to be a 1-1 as we move over to Control Center for real this time.
Yeah, credit to Talon, you got to say, kind of pulling it back. And there was that critical fight. Again, O2 Blast actually came in with an enormous ultimate advantage and had the percentage point advantage. So we almost see kind of the reverse of what we saw. Not fully, but almost the reverse of what we saw on Gardens. Just going to show how evenly matched these two teams are. But now as we come onto Control Center, we're probably just going to expect more brawl here.
We're going to get the Zarya Ryan version for Talon as well. I mean, Zarya has been falling out of meta. A lot of teams would prefer to play specifically Sigma on this sub-map. Take that space faster, doesn't rely on energy gain at all. Symmetra's still being played through, no junk crash, not those type of teams. So the only difference is going to be on the flex tanks. Great wall to open out with Talon have the positional advantage. It's O2 Blast fighting uphill.
Yeah, Yahoo was trying to come around and grab an off angle, but because of the placement of that wall, it actually just left him isolated from his team. You then saw Sanguinar kind of having to come in and around to his defense to help him out. A little bit of a buddy system there, and in all of that, O2 Blast, they're still just kind of trying to stabilize the positioning here. So often, I remember getting dangerously low, and finally something gives. It's Proper first, followed by Max, and then the whole flood comes across after the levy breaks. Talon still going to clean up the last couple now, and will get dibs on the point.
You see that O2 Blast, especially via Heesang's wall, they're kind of late to the party, over into mid, over into the top side of the map, so they have to back out, go over towards the point. Talon coming down, looking for the surround, looking for the collapse. They eventually find Proper first. Most important kill, get rid of the Symmetra, get rid of the main damage coming through from the Brawl composition, and that will be the end of it. These both teams, once again, predictably have the Matrixes available. Vigilante goes first, but both walls coming down, including, I think, Heesang's wall, which might block a little bit.
Yeah, there was sort of, looked like they were trying to kind of pinch them between the two just to stop them from pulling back, but they were able to get enough out of all those walls. Their own Matrix now getting laid out. Shadow goes directly into Yahoo's shield. That's a failure there for Kellen, and Heesang go down. Does at least get to deploy the Blizzard first, and I gotta say, all those isn't exactly doing a whole lot either. Vigilante really doing an important, not going down either, but Chorong super low, dangerously though, in fact, has a sound barrier now. It really feels the need to deploy, and you're gonna see Heesang coming in quick smart, but no, Vigilante going down. You're going to deploy that sound barrier. The time has long since passed, and with that, they're going to let the point go the way of O2. Well, had already gone the way of O2 Blast, mind you, but Talon kind of letting the fight go as well.
I think that's the biggest reason there. If it wasn't for the flip over for O2 Blast, I think Talon would have played the sound barrier for sure, keep the point going, try and accrue more percentage points if possible, but O2 Blast sneaking the cap away in the middle of that fight means that Talon now just looking for the reset, tried to get some exit frags if possible, but got cleaned up. Both teams are working over towards quite a few ultimates. It's Gravitic Flux versus Gravid on Surge. Grav versus Flux, and Flux comes out first, but lose Proper.
Yeah, absolutely enormous there, and now Max trying to go in with some kind of rescue play, and the Flux barely catches anyone and takes so much damage himself, he has to pull back into cover. So look at this now, attack, tons of charge in the pocket as Talon pile forward with the sound barrier at their backs, plenty of wind in their sails. It's already going to be Max in a little bit of trouble. He's finally going to go down to Kellen, charging him straight out. There's a couple of counter trades coming through. Yahoo's definitely looking to stay in into the last, but eyes on Kellen here. He's still up. He's still rolling. Still is Chorong with him. They've lost Yahoo here on the side of O2 Blast, and that should be Talon closing out the last bit of the fight, getting back in control of the point.
Really important that Max didn't find Valley on that Flux as well when O2 Blast used it. Talon Esports trying to get away. You see that Max was just trying to get something on the exit. He popped the Flux quite early, but couldn't confirm his AoE of where he was going to select it, so held on to the Flux in terms of being in the ultimate form for a while. Ends up finding not a lot. Attack comes back. I think it was a solo grab on towards Max, but they get the 6v5 going from there. It's going to go from 6v5 to 6v4. Developed even popped in the extra photon barrier for the survivability. Proper comes back off the Doomfist over on towards the McCree. Blizzard is available, instantly pop.
Throwing straight down on top of the team that was trying to just fire down range through that Matrix. It's still enough firepower to down Yahoo and Proper as well. That's the more dangerous one of the two. Kellen does go down to the counter trade, but now without Max, there's just not enough left for O2 Blast. The cap is nice. It buys them a little bit of a window here. Stalls things out just a smidge, but O2 Blast do lose the fight, make no mistake.
Really well played by Attack there as well. You saw from the POV of although despite dropping down the Blizzard, his primary target was actually Develop. He had Develop dead to rights, but Develop got bubbled at the perfect time to prevent the headshot coming through after being frozen up. With Develop and Attack still alive, and Attack notably on 90 plus 90 to 100 energy. Damage output between those two here, those two players, absolutely insane. Finn going down here. This should go the way of Talon. There's no Ant Matrix available, O2, and they're losing Max as well.
Yeah, the charge from Yahoo as well. The Immortality Field is immediately there to the rescue. And, I mean, immense credit to the Zarya there. One of the things, obviously, it all happened so fast that you don't even get the opportunity to talk about it at the time. But because of how that reset ended up falling, as he kind of noted, the Zarya didn't actually die and all that. Yeah, O2 Blast kind of get the point cap, but they had still to come straight back in for the next fight. It means the charge has not really, it's not degraded a whole lot. You still start that fight off in the realm of the 70+%, and then gets the opening kill as O2 Blast are approaching the point. It was all downhill from there. So enormous credit goes over to develop there specifically. So incredible stuff, I've got to say. And again, that closeness I think was demonstrated pretty perfectly across the entirety of Lijiang Tower, especially on that control center where the first two kind of had a midpoint where it went the way of one team and they just held on to it to the last. This one was a lot more back and forth, a lot more trading at the point going on, even within fights.
Absolutely. I mean, you see O2 Blast changing up the composition a little bit here as well. Unfortunately, they couldn't quite come back to that one, just losing to Attack, most importantly. On towards Zarya, had another grab coming on through. You talked about the energy, it was 90 plus, I think, towards the end. So,
Yeah.
very powerful performance for Talon to end that one. You probably did expect that Talon should, well, I don't know, that it's been 3 weeks since we've really seen Talon, so who knows what they've been working on behind the scenes. But for O2 Blast to be losing the Brawl Merit, probably not the biggest warning bells. That's the one you expect them to lose. O2 Blast are also the type of team that we know typically don't do super well in that first map anyway. First of all, plenty of maps to play through, and that's going to be first map done.
Impressive stuff. And now we're in that situation where someone's going to have to go ahead and pick a map. Still not going to be Talon. That we know for sure. So again, there's that little bit of what even is Talon's map pool? What are their preferred maps? It feels perfectly likely that O2 Blast are just going to go ahead and pick a preferred map for them that is going to be just as suitable for Talon. A part of me almost wonders if you go for King's Row just because it's like the neutral ground, but we've actually seen O2 Blast really favoring Blizzard World, so
Well,
maybe that's the way to go.
before we get there, we're going to take a short break, and when we do come back, we'll find out what map number 2 is. So stay tuned. Grand Finals returns straight after this.
Brief indeed. We are back at it. Just enough time to, I don't know, finish making a cup of tea or whatever it is you had going on in the time between. But
Maybe if you had
we were
the
just,
jug pre-boiled.
yeah,
Seems
yeah,
pretty
yeah.
quick.
Well, like it's that thing you do where, and you definitely shouldn't do this, by the way, but like you just boil like a huge amount of water at once, and then you only need to like top it off
Reboil.
when you make a tea, and then like maybe like 30 minutes later you want another one, but there's enough hot water still in there that like it's not too, it hasn't cooled down much, so you just need to boil it for a little bit and have it. You got a whole other cup of water still. I don't know what the physics is, honest. I genuinely don't know which method is like the less energy intensive, which one lowers your carbon footprint. Like, should you boil the exact amount every time, or should you like mass boil if you know you're going to drink a lot of tea over the course of the day?
Yeah, Americans can't relate. They don't drink tea. They threw it all in the ocean. But speaking of dropping the tea over here, map number 2. Will it be? Would it be? I think it was. It's meant to be assault or hybrid next. I'm trying to actually remember what the next map is meant to be because it's either going to be assault should be Temple of Anubis here. I'm
Yeah.
expecting O2 Blast to be going over towards that type of map. It's normally been their second map pick. It's normally been their assault map pick. This is where,
Mhm.
Kilo's going to come in and play some Ash. I wouldn't be surprised if, developing, he's saying do the same thing in terms of what their picks are. Obviously, no substitutions for the side of Talon Esports, but for O2, three players should be gone here. It'll be, you know, uh, Jumbin going out and Yahoo coming. No, Yahoo was already
Other
in,
way
so
around.
Yahoo's going to stay in. Jumbin's going to still be gone for now, so only two players will be changing up. Sanguinar will be moving out for possibly Vindime, unless they want to do something with a lot of Mercy, in which case Sanguinar will stay. Beyond that as well, Kilo's map should be here now, coming to map number 2. And as previously mentioned, Brawl was actually reasonable from O2 Blast, but that's not what they're trying to do to win here. O2 Blast need to get their job done on the Tracer Ash, and well, I think for Talon Esports as well, that's part of where their strength is also.
In all fairness, just on the note of Mercy, Vindame does have the Mercy at his disposal as well, and like reasonably so as well. Like
He's
that,
just not their designated player
yeah,
for the most part.
exactly. Like it tends to be more a situation of like we want Brigida, but we have a Mercy option still. They don't have to like sub Vindame out if they want to be able to flex over to a Mercy potentially in the course of a map. But yeah, it's more a marker of the Brigida than anything else. I've yeah, I feel like we've seen a lot of Vindame's Mercy, weirdly enough, despite the fact that, like, you would point to Sanguinar as being the
Well,
the preferred Mercy.
Well, no,
Huh.
I think we've seen plenty of Sanguinar
Oh,
on
we
maps where
absolutely
they're
have,
definitely going to
yeah.
be running Mercy. When maps where they really are going to be running a lot of Mercy, or Lucio actually, we just saw Lucio being played by
Mhm,
Sanguinar
yeah.
there. Those are the two kind of picks that we see most likely. So control maps is what comes to mind. Maps where you might want to go towards what Ash Echo at the same time, where you do really want a Mercy, but otherwise, when we're looking over towards any sort of composition that you want to play the standard double bubble, you might want to brig there. Otherwise, you were looking towards any sort of ball comp with Jumbin in, play Vindime over towards the brig for the extra healing onto the long range. So there's a lot of permutations of what O2 Blast can and could be doing, but standard play here for me would be to see Vindime coming on in, Yahoo staying in as well, unless you were. I don't think Jimbin plays ball on this map. Pretty sure it's Yahoo playing double bubble with the Winston here, and then Kilo playing Ash finally. And you're not going to see Ortho until probably map number 5 again. It's going to be a lot of Tracer Ash going through the rest of this, or potentially even the Widow and the McCree. And actually, as I noted in the past couple of days during Next Cup 2021 Spring, a lot of McCree gameplay being shown by Kilo instead of the Ash. So maybe there's going to be a bit of that today as well.
Overall, yeah, no disagreement there. Underall, I want to disagree with you, but that's separate. That's private. That's the joke.
Sure,
Made it now.
DM
Wasn't
it to
very
me.
good. Look, I'm just trying to sound out fresh material. Really, these shows are just an opportunity for me to practice my stand up more than anything else.
Ironic, you're
I'm
not
not going to
even.
make the
I'm the
obvious
one
joke
standing.
about the fact that I'm in a chair.
Yeah, I went there.
Thank you.
Um,
That's why I do stand up comedy and you don't. I
I'm
didn't say
looking to
I was
see
good
if
at it. I just said that I'd do it. Let me be clear about that.
I'm looking to see if there's any sort of potential other options for Talon Esports here. We're going to be looking towards, because they only have 6 members, and you don't for context as well. It's not like you need more than 6, unless you've got. I think 7's a good number. Having the third DPS allows you to have a few more options. But where Talon want to go in terms of compositions will be interesting. I'm fairly certain that look, if Talon have now beaten O2, not comfortably, but they have beaten O2 on the Brawl composition. When we move over towards Dive versus Dive, and it's going to be Temple of Anubis, probably wasn't too surprising there if you've been keeping up with what O2 want to do. Um, I think both teams have the same strengths, Sam, and not necessarily the same weaknesses. But if Talon end up finding a matchup victory on both mirror compositions, that's a problem for O2 Blast. That's going to be the issue where O2 Blast don't have a winning matchup anymore. They don't have a specific strength over Talon Esports, and things will get a little bit dicey from there. So you're hoping that if you're looking over towards Talon winning today, if they are going to win, they'll be able to find 2 winning matchups here. If it's O2 Blast, they can at least win in the dive, even if they're not going to do it on the brawl.
Exciting and expected, shall we say, the Temple of Anubis pick. This is where we had that draw, what feels like an age ago, between O2 Blast and Runaway. Am I expecting a draw tonight? Honestly, maybe. These are definitely two teams that I think could draw. It's going to come down more to how those B defenses actually play out for either team. We'll actually have to see how that comes to pass.
So we go looking over towards openings here. Talon Esports attacking side, Blast on the defense. Double bubble should be the name of the game. Max starting out on a Divas, maybe slightly. I wouldn't say it's. Part of me would have said maybe a few weeks ago, a couple months ago, that this would be weird for Max to come out on, but actually starting to address the meta a little bit more now. Diva on the defense is starting to become a little bit more standard than Zari on the defense here. A little bit more high ground control, a little bit more contesting, a little bit more pressure over towards attack. Talon Esports, pretty standard stuff. Develop, I don't even know would even stay on towards the Sombra. Most likely a scouting tool. Then coming back, he's saying teleporting forward. Trace Ash should be the gameplay. Other than that, maybe Trace the Sombra. Do something to see the Sombras being held onto, but we'll see if Develop wants to take that option or not.
Just kind of taking the time now. Because we do have the Echo Widowmaker for the defense. And Talon are going to be looking to bank up a couple of ultimates first. Eye is really on Vigilante here. Attack actually nearly goes down, but that is actually in the end just going to be ultimate charge Vigilante. So that's a bit of a timing window they're looking to open up.
That's a lot of limit testing there for attack because, you know, one extra shot, if it pierces the bubble and he goes down, that would have been Talon losing a little bit of time here, a little bit of opportunity to get this nano boost up. Obviously, attack on 0 HP, 400 HP worth of nano boost going over towards Vigilante. Yes, Heesang does die, but it's only just going to push Talon back slightly. They're still trying to farm a nano anyway. By the time Heesang comes back in, nano should be available in the next, I would say, 10 or so seconds by the 3-minute marker. That's usually time that attacking Annas are going for. Finn is very far behind on the other end, so not great defense from Blast. We'll have to see what developers setting up as well for the dive.
And I would say Kellen has banked up just enough ult charge as well that a good run with the nano boost from Vigilante should actually be enough to buy him a Primal Rage as well. And this is a really important window for Talon. While O2 Blast still don't have anything, the duplicate's actually going to be the first ultimate available for them out of proper as Kellen has committed in. Heesang eats a headshot, no resurrection option for Talon as of yet, and no counter trades either just yet. Proper now with the duplicated Primal Rage actually beats out Kellen's own Primal. He was never quite able to get that one charged up, and with that, O2 Blast surely looking to repel Talon here as Proper about to finish off another one in the form of attack. Choron to be trapped in a tiny little confined space. Actually, Max getting demeched a little bit late in the day there. It's going to go down. That's a potential window for Talon as the respawners come out.
A big deal there is the fact that Kilo kills Heesang right at the top of that one. And, I mean, look, Talon do come back eventually. Proper getting that Primal Rage up. We probably weren't expecting Talon to get us, to be honest with you. Starting at 50%, you're only going to get 30 to 40% even on good nano. Ideally, what you see out of Kellen there is actually just a kill. He has to land on someone like Vindime, has to land on someone like Ben. Forces 6v5, another headshot. This really puts some pressure on Heesang, and this is the difference. Proper doesn't have the same pressure on him because there's no sniper for Talon Esports.
Now Heesang this is ridiculous, just playing a children's game of Ring Around the Rosie against Kilo, who was still able to slip away long enough. It just ends up being an enormous distraction for Kellen. Now his and Heesang's Primal Rages both have expired. Junbin, on the other hand, does have his running still, and at this point, the wind has kind of been taken out of the sails.
Kilo dies, is going to come back into a Sombra, and wants to waste no time with this one. Obviously, O2 Plus with the deep wind is disadvantage for the spawns. Talon will be able to come back faster, and this one, and Nano's available again, straight onto the back line, and this is what Kellen needs to really take down the backliners.
Not quite able to get the finish off on Finn. The self-destruct kind of lobbed up as well, but the main chunk of the fight with attack kind of leading the charge on that, the grab as well. Just to lock Kilo down, they end up completing that kill and should be able to finish off the D-Mech on Max here. So Talon are finally able to get it over the line. It was a decent start despite the lack of immediate kills to come out of Kellen, but they get the point cap.
And they push back the supports most importantly, put the pressure to Vindime, get that Mercy down, and beyond that, it's a good hack coming through from, I believe it was developed. No, it was an EMP. EMP is going to make the difference as well. So Talon Esports with Heesang this time unimpeded, doesn't just die to Kilo straight away. That's really important to get that ultimate available. Proper will duplicate over, but not going to find too much more value beyond that one. Proper, who also received the nano, by the way, to try and speed up the duplicate. O2 Blast trying to hold on. Kilo swapped to McCree partway through that fight. Now realizing, look, it is going to be the defense. B defense really needs to get this McCree online. No ultras for O2 Blast. Open for a nano soon.
Heesang having to go for the swap onto Azaya there because he was actually on the cusp of death, but it also ends up working out big time for them. The damage, the extra damage coming out of Heesang, that is, even if he doesn't get a grab at this point, he's got one and Attack's got another. He may even get that grab yet. No, not quite, but Boy being they've got a third already. They're keeping a lid on these respawners, looking to get that second third pretty quick. Smart. Nobody's really able to get out of these base gates for any serious length of time. Vindame even receiving the nano boost just because there were no other suitable targets. And with that, 234, it's a one and done on point B for Talon.
Speedy. I mean, A took a while, but B was, B was extremely fast. One required. Grabs were there. Talon Esports had the players alive. You had Jimbin fragged early. Kilo gone as well. Finn waiting for the nano, had no option but to give nano over towards Max. Well, actually, it wasn't even Max, it was Vindime, so not even on towards attack. Talon Esports just continue snowballing a hack onto Proper, and it will be enough. O2 Blast looking over towards would have to be a more successful A into a lot of time for B. And opening compositions will tell you a lot here. Talon, do they want to go towards a very similar thing to what O2 Blast were doing? We'll see if they go towards an Echo Widow as well. Echo Ash is a little bit more common, which is why, maybe a little surprised that Kilo was on the Widow instead, but here it is. Echo Ash, having the Bob extra is really important. Double shield as well, so no dive pressure. Other than that, O2 Blast probably will start on a Sombra. Kilo's been playing a lot of Sombra, to my dismay, because I think his Sombra is maybe a little bit lacking. Definitely much better on the hit scan snipers, but he'll give it a go.
So, the enemy of O2 Blast here truly is the clock. Whether they get A fast and B slow, or the other way around, as Talon did, they need to have, I would say, at least a minute and a half, ideally more in the realm of 2 to 3. They want to be having a competitive time bank here, otherwise they could find themselves with their backs against the wall pretty quick. Smart as they roll out. Yeah, I'm going to see O2 Blast also going for the Zarya here.
Interesting thing to talk about here is all that's not been quite mentioned is that Jimbin's been here playing Winston the entire time. I mean, we could have seen Yahoo, O2 Blast trying to do some work on the Jimbin Winston, it seems. You would have imagined maybe Ball could have been the play, but it is going to be double bubble. Probably even going to go over towards the Genji, which is maybe a specific, I wouldn't say counter, but definitely an adaptation versus the fact that they've noticed that Talon are playing double shield on the defense here. Win conditions specific for Talon when 4 and extras come through for Vigilante. There's not been enough damage taken, so not a lot of farm for Talon. They're just going to be ready to receive Finn's nano boost, and that'll be about it. Nano be available in the next 10 seconds.
Been charging that one up at lightning speed, gonna pretty comfortably hit that minute mark. In fact, a little bit ahead of it there. 52 seconds to get that one ready. Question is, do they throw it into Junbin or do they throw it into Proper? I imagine they'll throw it into Junbin, obviously without the blade being available just yet. Here we go, Junbin. Quick commit, look at that attack, already feeling the heat. The Immortality field is gone, but Max is actually the first casualty. The manual hack's onto Talon, but at this point, the target selection is just a little bit too split. Junbin has to dive for safety as the nano boost runs out, and O2 Blast are going to find themselves falling short on this first go-around.
And they receive the nano. I mean, Jimbin dives in, doesn't get too much more work out of that. We'll try and farm a bit of primal if possible with the DPS gone. Not hoping for much more to come through from O2 Blast. If they get one trade, that would have been ideal. Getting at least somebody down to force the respawns from Talon really mess up the defensive setup, would have been good for O2 Blast, but now Talon get those ultimates. They have pretty much everything coming online in just a second. The only thing they'll be missing is the supercharger, but I'm sure that'll be fine. The next time Jimbin dives in, they'll need to try and burn him down with something like, they can land a stun, get that and Matrix into a good position. Really get the damage in. If O2 Blast go for point, Bob can be defending the point as well. There's no EMP, there's no blade, so O2 Blast don't have a lot to work with until Finn gets another nano.
He's saying going for a quick swap in the middle of this one. Ends up on a Genji. I don't know that that was his intention necessarily, but at any rate it is forcing O2 Blast to pair back a little. He's saying not going to get anywhere near a blade. So that is just one less ultimate available. It loses O2 Blast a bit of time, but not going to mind that too much.
It's an overstep from he's saying, and yet he does go Genji. He does play Genji as well as part of one of the heroes in his hero pool. So probably was on purpose, but actually using it here, just maybe a little optimistic, and definitely could have held on considering O2 Blast. We're still charging ultimates. Not that Talon knew that. And now though, if you are Talon, if you didn't expect O2 Blast to have ultimates, you definitely do it now. And this is where EMP is available as well. Here comes the Flux. Still waiting for EMP. Nano Blade on board for O2 Blast next.
Oh, it's really rough that Junbin actually went down, because I was about to say O2 Blast had kind of weathered about everything that Talon had there. They've used the bomb, they've used the flux, but Supercharger also now committed. Guy's gone down already. The ult's still getting committed from O2 Blast. Going to be able to get some solid mileage out of that. Actually holding on to an EMP is maybe a bit of a silver lining in all this. That could be a bit of a momentum tool coming on to B. So they've capped A in about the same kind of time as what Talon did when all is said and done.
And they have the capability of double capping now as well, because Talon have burned all their ultimates here. I mean, notably, he's saying already lost duplicate earlier. Grav's there, I mean, Grav EMP, which is such a good combo, not to layer on top of each other, but just having both available. And I thought maybe Jimbin not propping the Primal was going to cost them A, but now in hindsight, they get to keep the Primal for this B attack, so 3 ultimates out of 6 being retained for O+. It's fairly strong. We're looking over towards a very similar time, and O+ can definitely get a 3, or rather 234 can be found for O2 here.
Gunbin leading the charge with that one first, drawing a lot of P-Sanks to take the Primal immediately needs some crowd control, but as you pointed out, the Bionade allows Talon to go down, and now the EMP to come across as these members are already bleeding out, just needing to finish off the last few here. They've de-transformed T-Sang, that's a decent find to get the finish off as well, first third. Just about picks up here. They have almost very nearly got it. Finn goes down. That could be an important counter trade. They only have Vindam's healing, and now Kilo dead as well. This might not be enough for O2 Blast. They're starting to run out of momentum, even as they are keeping ahead of the respawners. If Talon can maybe find one more, or get a few more respawners out to this point, but no such luck. And look at how close those times are.
And that's the thing as well. Vigilante comes back in. Not too sure where the window goes, but Talon can't quite make enough work out of it. Vindime on the rally, and this, well, to be honest, might be solo healing, but rally is a really strong ultimate, so able to keep everybody up in an AoE fashion. Final blade, just in case somebody else was going to come back for a touch, and the final blade would have been more than enough if you even have a situation where Finn can get LOS, a long range nano could have been played in, late to the day, but Ultra Blast with an even better time bank by 3 seconds, so able to get that job done right towards the end. The double cap with the ultimate advantage that they had, huge. The EMP coming in, blocking Heesang from getting much more done on his duplicate, making sure that Kellen was one of the first players down on the Orisa, completely melted. Ultra Blast playing with a huge player advantage from there, despite losing Finn and a couple of others.
So now, 3 seconds difference. I mean, it's effectively nothing, right? And I was saying O2 Blast, they wanted to cap with at least a minute and a half, ideally between 2 and 3. They end up coming in at an even 2:37, so dead on the mark, and both teams actually very similarly. Slow cap on A, fast cap on B. 2 minutes, though, means slow cap on A is not something they can afford to do twice. They're going to have to get it out quicker. Solid Bionade, just a little bit of extra ult charge in the pocket for Finn as we open the doors.
Well, it's going to be slow innings for defensive Ana here compared to the offensive Ana. So if there's any case where Finn can keep on tabs with Vigilante and keep it close, that would be really powerful for a player like Finn. But really, it's going to be coming down to how fast Talon can get this. And we've seen situations where even teams who only have about a minute or maybe a minute 30 left, and it might have actually been Ultra Blast on the attacking stage for that, managed to get it down to within like 40 seconds. So that's something that Finn, or Vigilante rather, needs to be able to land in our opening fight here. So first minute will be nearly gone. 66 is kind of on par. 20 seconds to get the last. 25% should be able to get that. No other opening damage, no other opening kills. Develop looking to shut down Kilo in the long range duel as well.
Gunbin's down, that's a heartbreaker. Finn not able to keep him alive. That being said, he's matched the ultimate charge with Animus just well enough, and Kellen's also down as well, so Vigilante can't even deploy his in the brief window where Finn hasn't got his yet. In fact, both having to go in for this. Vigilante went in first on attack. Finn has to therefore match with a nano onto Max, but it is the latter that is far more successful as the members of Talon getting forced back to the base now, and the reset on attack is going to be the big tell, I think, because that's one Xayah holding on to about 50% charge by the time the next fight breaks out. The other one completely reset.
Finn's going to come back late, though. I actually didn't think Finn needed to go for the nano. It seems like an overstep, but just for safety, they didn't want to take a chance there. The nano coming through from Vigilante, had to go on attack because Kellen was dead, so the most important member to kill on Talon was actually Kellen. Ultra Blast got him down. Grav coming in for the next fight. Heesang does have a duplicate. Will be final fight now. 20 seconds remaining, and there's no clue well where Proper is. So Talon don't actually know where this Tracer is, and that means Proper can come in and a nice cheeky pulse bomb that would end things for Talon Esports on this attack.
Grav already committed right in the thick of things. The pulse bomb laid on top of it, but does quite connect. Bit unfortunate there. That's such a potent combo, especially with Proper so hidden. But as it happens, the fight itself rages attack. A little bit late on the mark with the Grav there. Vigilante has already died. Heesang's already been de-transformed. Vindame ending up being the only casualty, and with developed dead and Heesang napping, it's looking like O2 Blast are going to be able to hold fast here. Talon do at least get themselves a third, so that does mean, for one thing, we are definitely not going to have a draw. But I've got to say, 2 minutes and 3 seconds, 37.9% isn't exactly comfortable territory for Talon on the defense.
It's a good couple of kills coming through in Talon towards the end there, but when the player numbers start to get lower and the chaos is definitely brewing, that's when Proper really thrives. So this Tracer completely unchecked. Chorong dies at 99%. Vindime is unfortunately dead when the rally comes to resource, and neither team really got to use the rally for that last fight. Talon just ran out of time. I think Talon, you have to go back to that initial engagement, losing Kellen, putting the Nano onto attack. Part of me thinks they just don't play the Nano at all. Part of me thinks Talon just back out, try and play for another fight, save the Nano for another day, your secondary engagement there, actually put it onto Kellen and find a proper dive on that, or beyond it, wait for Kellen to respawn during the fight itself with the player advantage, put the Nano to Heesang and play the dive off Heesang and said it was actually half HP and needed a bit of a rapid heal. I can't imagine that attack had much energy to work with, so Talon's first engagement was unfortunate given that 1 minute had to be spent trying to build up a Nano boost, and the rest of that attack was just a complete bit of a failure, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, indeed. One thing we also saw the potency of, I dare say, is we saw the proper Kilo, the Tracer Ash, as you kind of pointed out. We obviously the first time around we actually saw Echo on the defense for them, so a bit of a different look at this second defense, and now just sizing up what they want the offense. Indeed, they want the Tracer Ash again. If Flame Broke don't fix it. So now my eye once again is drawn to Finn. How quickly will this Nano boost come into play, and will it be successfully deployed once it is available?
Let's probably go to Genji here again, because you are looking over towards Talon playing another double shield. Jimin goes down to 1 there, but that just speeds up Finn's ult charge. Finn will be on for a very quick one here again. 2:03 is the starting time, so 1:03 is what I'm looking towards for maximum time for Finn. He's, well ahead in terms of that timer. Talon, predictably, you're not going to have anything to work through, so the way Talon can hold on here is, again, to have another situation previously what we saw on the initial neutral, where they were able to receive the Nano, Finn pops onto Jumbin, no one dies from Talon, and that's good. But 40 seconds, but they got to go in the next 5.
Took him 52 seconds the first time around, took him 39 on the second one. Finn is absolutely machine-like on this, but like you said, now they've got to go. They've already lost Kilo in the rotation. Obviously, no resurrection available here. They may just end up getting forcibly reset regardless. It's not like Vigilante is going to use that time to charge up his own Nano boost, but what they are going to be able to charge up is the rest of that duplicate.
Rather, Kilo's going to come back on a Sombra as well, so no time wasted. Heesang, the duplicate, can go over towards Winston. A lot of good options over towards Heesang. He'll be looking for a flank over here. Ultrablast have honestly lost a lot of that time pressure, so despite getting a 39-second Nano, I mean, it's taken them a long time to get this Nano actually into play. So here goes Jumpin finally, and hasn't found any good targets.
Not just yet. Heesang as well with a duplicated Winston, already with his primal naturally in a very confined space here. Proper's already dispatched John. Junbin dead, barely even charging 50% off that Nano boost. And yeah, it's going to be a reset with barely any time left to spare. If they lose anyone else here, they may just be out of it already, in the flux to secure the last few members. Only 10 seconds on the clock with Max slow to reset.
That'll be proper Jimbin touching here, and that'll be it. I mean, they needed to not lose the last couple of members. Finn even comes back on a Lucio. I don't think it's going to happen. Jimbin dies mid-sky. Mid-air. Time runs out. Talon take map number 2.
Absolutely brutal there on the close, and that's the thing. 2 minutes, 3 seconds. Both teams had really slow runs through A. It wasn't a situation where, Nano boosts got charged up, they get committed to Winston's, and that's where the attacker breaks it, right? And actually, in every situation, it was not a Nano boost early onto a Winston that ended up winning it for the attacking side. It happened way later, often a little bit more kind of off kilter, if you will. And it's really telling, right? Like during the whole course of that, like we're highlighting these nano boosts, we're highlighting the really fast charges on them, sure, but like that was never the thing that actually won a fight. And at the end of the day, because Talon like barely half win a fight insofar as they threatened the point enough to get 30-something%, and O2 Blast don't even come close to that, it ends up being the difference. It is an absolute game of inches right now.
I mean, the problem is it's not even the nano timing there. The nano timing only makes a difference if you can actually use it within the timing itself. So if you get in 40 seconds, you need to use the nano in the 40 seconds. You need to use it in the next 2 to 3 seconds straight away to kind of take your opponent off guard there. And to be fair, it's not even just Finn. It's the rest of his team taking damage and not dying, understand their limits. taking the max amount of damage without going down. That's how you get a fast nano. And then Kilo dying on rotation really cost them the timing, so they lost all tempo there. They were stuck in the side room. Give Heesang the opportunity to flank around the side. Give Heesang the opportunity to build up a duplicate, find a primal, and that primal from Heesang on the duplicated Winston completely ends the push. No one can help jump in when he finally gets a nano and dives in. He can't find any good targets. Immediately, you just see Talon Esports disperse their back line, and they're fine. They're going to just lock down the rest of O2 Blast in the side room. No one else can do anything. So the one play that gets out is entirely on its own. No damage follow up. And Nano's not good enough to clean up a target without some follow up. And no cap. Late deaths as well. Talon
Yeah.
got those really late kills coming on in, which really ruined the reset from Talon's from the O2 Blast. So a lot of timing issues there. A lot of which was actually forced by Talon Esports just killing a member from O2 Blast when O2 Blast really couldn't afford to lose anybody.
And I mean, overall, now, as I kind of said, a game of inches, but it has consistently been Talon just an inch or two ahead of O2 Blast. You know, both now on Lijiang Tower and Temple of Anubis. You can look at how desperately close the two were, right? The two teams trading back and forth across Lijiang Tower, trading back and forth of the final stage of our control center. Both teams having an almost dead even time back with Temple of Anubis, but points still stands. It's actually Talon halfway there now, 2-0 lead they have, slowly but surely starting to approach the 4 maps required. O2 Blast are going to have to start coming back. We're going to be taking a little bit of a breather, and in that time, O2 Blast are going to have to reset, reassess, and come back swinging after this break. With that, welcome back. I've poured myself a cup of tea and grabbed a handful of cashew nuts. Great source of magnesium for those of you who are curious. But at any
Hmm.
rate, we continue forth, shall we say? And as I was kind of saying just before the break, it's felt pretty close. It's been a game of inches. Indeed, it has been extremely close when you look at what's happened across the maps. But the point still stands that it's actually Talon just kind of edging it out in every single case. They are currently 2-0, even though the differences have been minimal. You know, it's the difference between getting 30% on a point before ultimately losing a fight and not getting any percentage on a point in your time bank situation. So with that, the 2-0 lead means O2 Blast are picking the map again. This time we are on their hybrid. We will be going to Blizzard World.
Just make sure you don't have too many cashews. You wouldn't want to overdose on magnesium. I don't know the magnesium
Yeah, what
content of each
happens if
specific
that?
cashew,
I'm
but
curious.
you know, you need to probably eat like a human person's body weight worth of cashews to really do. It's probably like chocolate. You know, when you have to really get poisoning from chocolate, you probably have to eat like kilos and kilos worth of chocolate, or
Yeah.
pounds and pounds of it if you're American. But we're gonna want to try and really stuff down as much Overwatch as we can today, depending on how much Talon will allow Ultrabus to play today, because apparently a
Yeah.
2-0 is a pretty strong start. But also, I would go as far as to say that specific Temple of Anubis loss did come down, or win or loss, depending on which way you look at it, did come down to the time bank for the teams, because otherwise it was pretty even. 3-second difference in the regulation time. Time bank is what made the difference there. You talked about the fact that O2 Blast, failed to get that one tick, and Talon did. O2 Blast had a lot of timing issues that were forced onto them by Talon Esports due to the fact that kills came in at the really, really rough times. Now as we head over to Blizzard World, another really good O2 Blast map. They do like to go towards this one, so we're going to do.
That roller coaster, by the way. 'Cause I'm so obsessed with it. It's like a single rail something coaster. There's only like 2 of them in the world. Anyway, actual game at hand.
One of them is
It's going to be a bit of a roller coaster ride because Proper's already done for on this defense. That's a bit of a tough break to begin with.
It is when your best player on the team is already gone, the carry potential is gone, 5v6, Proper's trying to come back in. This is Talon's opportunity to get a 6v4, but at this stage, Proper returning, I don't think it's going to happen. He hangs down, and Ultrabus will turn it around.
That's important there. Coach got back to safety as well. Skilo's made the rotation with that. Proper's back in. And O2 Blast actually did a good job of slowing down Talon's move towards the point there so that they could pull back just a little bit, waiting for those resetting, respawning members. This is an absolute slugfest at this point. Super back and forth now as Talon, with that first third accrued and a couple of late kills on either side, should favor Talon with that closer respawn.
Talon did have the late test kid death though, so because attack dies and attack and Zarya is not particularly fast, it means Talon won't be able to use this player advantage as far as respawns goes. With double supports down for O2 Blast, Kilo went down as well. Everyone will be floating back over to towards defense in time, so it looked okay from Talon. They got 42.2, which is what O2 Blast give up, waiting for Proper to return to Faven, and with Proper coming back in, he's pretty much already on a pulse bomb. He gets a couple of frags, and he's almost caught up to Heesang here as Talon to take high ground advantage.
And already that's Max done for. As quick rotations in from Talon. Now just kind of, where's the rescue going to come from for O2 Blast, if anywhere? Waiting on maybe Proper with the Pulse Bomb. They've got a Transcendence available, but here we go. The commitment comes in. Kellen does get dropped down now. They're trying to just force them back. The Bob dealt with Talon having picked up their second tick already. Develop those super low. Looking to get muscled out here as they've lost attack already.
Really good whip shot from Chorong as well. Kind of messes up Jimbin's mine placement, but I don't think it'll make a difference here. It's a cute play, and Talon will find a minor advantage there, but they won't get too much more done in terms of the objective. They'll get the second tick, but they can't get the kills required. 3 ultimates still available for O2 Blast, and overall, O2 Blast are feeling okay about it. Pulse Bomb's traded there. Talon don't get a chance to use his nano boost. About a minute 30 left. I mean, I expect the Talon should be able to eventually get this cap with the grab coming online. They need to survive against the Flux though. They're going to be up against a rally where Chorong is still waiting about 11% for it. But it will be Nano coming in. And you're not going to get Finn to pop this Transcendence until the grab comes on through. So focusing damage on Finn will be important. And there it is, they force stretch.
Yep, there we go, has to be forced out. And look at that, the kills just quickly collected. They're already 2 through quick smart to grab the Gravitic Flux that is. And really tidy clean up. Talon though do bank a few at least for the next fight.
So I mean, like, yeah, they get the trance out, and the fact they even get the rally coming through from O2 as well, so they force O2 to actually overcommit there. But at the cost of losing another fight with Talon, end up getting traded there. Proper and Vindime, Max and the rest get Chorong Vigilante down. So yeah, the Nano's been played in there. They put the pressure on, and Talon Esports spend no more. What Talon are going to go for here is one final push. 40 seconds remaining to get one tech, but they'll be able to grab for free here. And O2 Blast is going to need to find a pick off a proper pulse bomb. That's their only option.
Time is absolutely wasting. And if O2 Blast can clutch it out, if Proper can maybe pop off or something brilliant happens, maybe early kills coming through. But here we go, it's already the minefield deployed. The grab, it's just kind of off into the middle of nowhere. It's only really caught Vindames, who's not feeling particularly threatened. The pulse bomb has collected one, and Vindames already found attack as well prior to that. So with that being done, O2 Blast already a little bit ahead. Good kill onto Kilo, nearly had the bomb, but wasn't quite able to deploy it in the breath he had before going down. However, the trades have still been coming through. O2 Blast, though, they lose another one in the form of Max. Talon are going to have some respawners coming out. They could maybe make something happen here. John Finn finding another one late in the day here as he tries to pull back to his team. Critical timing there. O2 Blast. You're going to have Kilo coming back in now with the bomb at his disposal. Can they hold on?
I mean, the grab didn't get them the damage they wanted to, but Talon here, they're going to have the respawn advantages. Vigilante gets the nano off just before he dies. Talon secures positioning off the back of it. Develops on the side as well with Widowmaker, and with Talon's frags, I'm thinking they should be able to get this cap, but the bomb still needs to be dealt with. Max nearly got it. Max survives. This is going to be rough for Talon.
The bomb lasted for so long for one thing, and now actually O2 Blast getting some critical counter trades, Transcendence as well. I think they're going to do it. They're going to hold off. Look at that. Talon going down late in this one, and Talon just never getting the edge there, even in getting so many opening kills on O2 Blast. O2 Blast has been able to hold off, regroup, and repel them time and time again.
It's well played by O2 Blast to kind of counter the grab on Surge coming on through, and part of the reason why the grab doesn't do enough damage is because the follow-up wasn't there. You didn't see Talon. Attack goes down pretty much straight away when the grab does come on in, and as a bait for the grab as well, because O2 Blast completely spread themselves out. Max was the only one on the point itself, so if you're going to grab, you're probably going to solo grab Max. Then Vindime joins the fray. It's two people there. That looks like a pretty attractive grab. As soon as Vindime joins in, Max goes for the kinetic grasp, and then Attack can't go for the grab anymore because he's at that period, he's going to have it eaten away, so he's holding it again, and he's holding it so long while being in the middle of the team, while being in the open, he eventually takes a lot of damage, goes down when he finally puts the grab in there, and there's no one to follow up on the damage. Talon Esports had to play for respawns. It's a complete chaos fair. Both teams playing for respawns. Bob from Kilo held the point for so long. I'd say hold the point. It's not contesting the point, but it's shooting the point, really keeping Talon at the bay. And then eventually you see the trans coming on, and the rest of O2 Blast find their ultimates, and it's over for Talon, who desperately needed to get more kills while they had the cap going their way.
Just never quite got that critical mass. It just goes to show the skill of O2 Blast, how little they can hold on with. And now look, 81%, it's something, I gotta say, but I certainly wouldn't feel comfortable with this as the defender here. You certainly expect O2 Blast should be able to cap out the fullness of the point at any time in the next 4 minutes.
And Talon are even going towards a traditional brawl here as well, which means O2 Blast, once they see this, they can have many options. Sombra's available, Fire's available, Echo's available. They're already running the Mercy on Vindime. It wouldn't be too hard for Popper to just go over towards the Echo, and they should be looking over towards the composition. I mean, O2 Blast have a full 4 minutes to find out what kind of hard counter they want to go towards. Popper's at least committed for now, so he's not going to go back and change, but there is the option, even if O2 Blast lose the first fight.
And with Kilo and Proper, they're just kind of looking to apply that never-ending pressure and eventually over something out with a kill. It's not going to happen this first time around, though. His attack does deal with Proper on the flank to begin with, and no counter trade coming in just yet. Proper will be respawning before too long, though.
And he really wants to stay on the Tracer here, feeling the backline pressure. Will be interesting to see if he get any work done on that. And O2 Blast continually just losing one player at a time. So, the first minute has just been exploring, testing out the water. What's the temperature like? A little bit too hot, at least for now. But they haven't given over ultimate charge. So O2 Blast have lost a couple members, but they haven't lost a team fight, which means no super fast Ant Matrix for Vigilante. He's going to have it soon. No super fast Shatter, no Blizzard to play against just yet. O2 Blast need to take a bit of time to poke out Talon Esports. The only issue with that is it does take time, and, well, a minute 30 is now gone.
That's the thing, because those first two instances just had a single member go down without O2 Blast having the minutes to just kind of sit there and poke out. Now find themselves in the situation. Finn taking some hits. It's going to have a Transcendence available though, so it could kind of come out to a big old brawl about now. Talon actually really feeling the heat on attack. He's saying dead to a headshot as Kellen drilled down. Floodgates are open, my man, and the river is raging torrential. 2 minutes on the clock still as O2 Blast having only lost Max to self-destruct. Attack does at least remech, but I don't know if that state of defense is going to last a whole lot longer time. Finn does go down to the counter trade, but I would rather have Attack alive than Finn on this defense right now. Not enough manpower left as O2 Blast collects their point, collect their map win, and start turning the series back around.
And it's like everyone on Talon dies just as the ultimates come on alive as well. I mean, you had the Blizzard that was there for Heesang 97%. Developed had the Deadeye couldn't quite use it. The only ultimate that got played was Vigilante, who had the early Ant Matrix, and Attack, who did find a self-destruct, but beyond that, I mean, Trong doesn't get to use a sound barrier, and that's because Talon never found a fight. Ultra Blast were playing on the outskirts the entire time. They're trying to play for poke, and look, proper on either Echo or the Tracer would have been acceptable. On the Tracer, he finds the time to run down Kellen, the Reinhardt, the main tank of Talon Esports, and with a couple of frags going the way very quickly of O2 Blast, like I said, the floodgates open and it just goes one-sided from there. It's a bit of a landslide after the first couple of frags coming through because there's just no response from Talon. You need ultimates on a brawl to have a good response, and you need to get those ultimates by snowballing a very good fight. But they never got that good fight because all they got was that one kill, then they got one more kill, and Ultra Blast are only ever drip feeding small bits and pieces, small little crumbs to Talon Esports instead of actually giving them a proper team fight.
And when you compare that to O2 Blast on their defense, you had Talon on the attack, they'd get a couple of kills, and then O2 Blast would get a trade or two. And you never had that critical mass. And as you kind of rightly pointed out, O2 Blast, on the other hand, they get a slew of kills quickly. Talon, they did finally get some counter trades, but like they picked off Finn way too late. This is after Attack has already been demacked, and at that point, Attack is the closest thing they have to a tank within 10 yards of the point. Uh, Everything just came in, a bit disjointed, a bit too slow. But it's also just the efficacy of O2 Blast's team comp and their execution thereof. They know how to just kind of squeeze the defending team there, keep applying that pressure until eventually something gives. And what you actually had there was you had
Mhm.
Kellen getting low and you had Heesang getting low, and then you have Kilo landing a headshot for a killing blow onto Heesang. So you never actually had that opportunity to start stabilizing from that position. And then, before you can even consider a counter trade, you've got to somehow stabilize Kellen. And that's where O2
Well,
Blast can find their openings.
I mean, so much of that to me was just a compositional difference. You
Mm,
take a big risk by playing Brawl in that defense. You know, it doesn't have a lot of utility. You know, it doesn't have a lot of versatility. It's a really kind of one tone kind of composition in terms of
mm.
matchup. You need to go into a proper 6v6. If you have a poke team that is just constantly darting around the outside, never committing to a fight, who are you supposed to brawl onto? Who are you supposed to engage onto? There's no option there. You're waiting for Jimbin to overcommit. He never does that. You're waiting for Heesik, rather, you're waiting for Proper to maybe be caught. Closest to that happening was Develop hit a nice headshot via the McCree, but it's only 140 damage. Proper hides, recalls, gets a health pack. He's fine. Finds the next timing, kills Kellen. That's going to be it. And they never could lock
Precisely.
down a proper team fight. So you are seeing a sort of situation where honestly I would have preferred if Talon just played typical Ash dive on the defense as well, a ball defense maybe even double bubble there, something with a little bit more mobility, knowing that Ultra Blast are not the type of team to play Brawl. Ultra Blast are probably going to match you, and you have a better compositional matchup playing the mirror than I think playing a Brawl versus an attack that is 4 minutes. That didn't even swap. Like, they could have still gone fire. They could have still gone Echo, and they would have been able to, I would say, for Ultra Blast, if they did that, had an even easier time taking A than what actually happened.
And let's also be completely clear. There's the other side of this that is also Talon on the attack, not just Talon on the defense, because it was about a minute and a half on the clock when the cap fully went over, somewhere between that and 2 minutes. Which is reasonable. Like it's not impressive. It's not this absolute lightning speed one and done kind of thing, but it's also not right down to the last, right? Talon, on the other hand, like they eked out a third in one instance, they eked out another third in another instance, but they just, as we were kind of saying, never got the critical mass of it on any one particular attack. You've got to consider if they'd actually capped out a point there, they have, you can only go so far down into what if territory, but imagine a world where they've actually had some progress on B, possibly even cap that out. I mean, we've seen teams cap A in the overtime and then nearly make it all the way through to C and actually have that be a difference maker when push comes to shove. So not only did Talon not have sort of kind of hamstrung themselves a little bit compositionally on that A defense. They also didn't have the breathing room of being able to take a B defense in any way, shape, or form.
I think B is actually one of Ochuba's better points as well. So, Ochubas
For
typically
sure.
don't even struggle on this map until we get to C. So it doesn't get any better for Talon. Well, I guess we'll never really know. But Ultra Blast took their attack slowly. They did lose a couple members. If there's one thing that Talon are doing consistently is that they're able to, on their defense, find these individual picks at really annoying times for Ultra Blast. And when you've only got 2 minutes to work through, or 2 or 3 to work through on a time bag, that's disastrous. But when you're in regulation time, you got a full 4 minutes to get like a tick and a bit. It's whatever. Like it's a minor inconvenience at that stage for Ultra Blast. So they'll be able to bounce back pretty quickly and get that cap.
Now, curiously, we go to our next map, and as we were kind of pointing out, it's not often we see Talon forced to pick a map, and their map of choice is going to be Dorado. So I suppose that answers some amount of question in terms of what they're going to go to, and it makes a lot of sense to me as well. It's something we were actually remarking last week. Again, it was in a different context in terms of, you know, one of our escort maps kind of favors the hybrid, the other kind of favors your Ash Tracer dive a little bit more, and then Dorado is just kind of in between there. Like, it doesn't feel particularly favored one way or the other. Certainly there are things that are made better on the map and not. There are particular picks that you can pull out, but at the end of the day, this feels like taking it to neutral territory.
We don't see Dorado often, for what it's worth. I think a lot of teams would prefer to go. Havana has been one of the more picked maps here. I would even go as far as to say that Havana has been the most picked map for escort. So Dorado will be quite interesting in terms of, you know, let's see what Talon favor for this. As substitutions for O2 Blast, none that I can see, so no Sanguinar here. Jumping to play some ball. Zarya is a really interesting pick for this type of map as well, where honestly I think D.Va's a better pick, especially for B, but on A, it's, you know, Zarya can be pretty viable. We'll see how it scales into towards B when Talon get there, assuming Talon does get there. Haven't seen too much out of Kellen lately, where Kellen, you know, pre-match was saying that Kellen's probably by far the best main tank in Korea, and maybe a little bit of a quieter game than I expected from Kellen, but still time to get this Primal Raging Winston underway as into map 3. Talon still do lead the series, map 4 rather, still do lead the series 2-1.
And it's impressive for the time being as standard beats on this opening bit. Velop just kind of landing some shots, keeping O2 Blast honest on the defense.
It's already a very important member down. Obviously, no res, no mercy. Talon Esports can work that, convert onto a second member. Jimbin, not too sure where he got caught, but he's staying on towards the flank. Really annoying for a Bolt to deal with, and this tank defense looks like it's already really falling apart. They need Jimbin back immediately, and O2 Blast is just going to pull away, not wanting to lose any further members.
Just kind of been one thing after another there. The loss of Finn, the late one on Junbin now here as Talon essentially own this entire courtyard. The question is going to be, can O2 Blast actually come back in to try and contest it in any way?
Right, here's the Nano. Great timing over towards Kellen. They do lose Vigilante, but as long as Kellen doesn't die, they'll be fine. They need to pocket Kellen, but
as you see it. Yeah, burns out to the Dynamite, unfortunately, so that could be enough for O2 Blast to hang their hopes on, with Max having a silent charge at his disposal. His right clicks are going to slowly but surely force the remnants of Talon back towards their spawn to, at the very least, wait for those respawners, and probably moreover actually charge up a couple of other ultimates.
1 HP for Kilo there, but doesn't go down, so that's still important for O2 Blast. Surviving as the DPS members, working towards a grab. Attackers really far away, and for Talon Esports, losing Vigilante there means no pocket for Kellen. Tron can't keep up the heals and lose pressure on the attack. They're still here though, speaking of attack, under a lot of pressure via the grab. Solo grab, but it's effective.
Yeah, well worth there, especially with Vindave actually dealing with Hisang off to the side, and then even getting the follow-up to help out with Helen. The support duo just really watching each other 6 for O2 Blast. Talon finding absolutely no purchase on that push.
Now the rest of O2 Blast will be working towards ultimates. Grav was used, but there's 3 more coming online between Kilo, Jumbin, and Vindime. They already have the Transcendence, probably looking for over 4 stick. Not going to be saving for a Grav combo. Isn't required. Talon don't have the Nano for this push. They do have a bunch of tank ultimates. I can see them definitely walking in, opening with a Deadeye, and then eventually getting this Grav down. The only other issue is attack has no energy to play with, so they need Kellen to land on top of this Grav perfectly.
Eyes now onto Talon, Kellen, Primal Rage, pretty much all they got. Eats to sleep for just a brief second, but otherwise it's going to be just fine. This could be a decent, yes, quarter trap. Kilo's able to get away. Meanwhile, the grab on the rest of the squad there. Finn has the answer in the form of the Transcendence, and now the good kill onto Kilo does finally come through, but attack is down in the counter trade. Kellen's got to get a bit more done right now with this Primal Rage, with the Nano Boost rather, but no such luck, and Kilo having got the bomb off before going down, sort of keeping half a member in that fight, so an asymmetric trade that inevitably favors O2 Blast now, even as we come into the closing beats of it. Once again, Max still has a ton of charge. Some late kills for Talon. Talon, but I don't know if it'll be enough.
No, I mean, it's 4 players still alive, and even though Kilo went down, the Bob still was deployed, so really, is it a player advantage to a 6v6 at that stage, dealing with the Bob? There wasn't a sleep coming on through. Notably, when the Graviton Surge dropped, yes, Finn did have the counter with the Transcendence, but Vigilante needs to land a proper Bayonet that splashes across and catches a couple members that you can confirm. Kellen gets Kilo down, but as I said, the Bob was there, so wasn't quite worth it, wasn't quite able to find the value. This grab gets developed, and there's no trade so far.
Oh, yeah, just nothing to be done about that. So just wanting to run down the clock at this point as Talon's starting to round the bend of not enough time left. We are in final fight territory. They're going to be reliant on respawners.
And this is looking like another full hold. I mean, O2 Blast in the last 2 maps have really come on through. Last 2 maps, including this one, where Talon have just not been able to get past A. They're not landing their ultimates. They're not finding player advantages. They're not blowing down O2 Blast with a lot of players killed at the same time. And with more ultimates still available for O2 Blast, I mean, mine's going to be difficult to deal with. Looking for the pulse. Isang dies.
Oh, that's already a disastrous start for Talon, who have nothing to go on except their own sweat and gumption. And I don't think it's going to prove to be enough. Not even enough sweat to fill a whole cut. The Nano Boost is there on to attack. And O2 Blast are fairly respecting that with the man advantage they do have at their disposal. I don't know that I see Talon really stabilizing here.
No, this is looking like it's going to be it. Heesang needs to drop a really fat pulse, will miss. Kilo jumps away, double support ultimates for O2 Blast, and they will complete the full hold. The payload barely gets enough distance. It really doesn't get much more done. Talon Esports, rough timing as well. They lose Heesang, which is bad, but then Kellen goes down about 3 seconds before Vigilante has a nano. So once again, you have Talon Esports forced to pop a nano onto attack instead of Kellen, where attack doesn't really even have any energy to work with. No main tank to work up with as well in terms of helping mitigate the damage, helping push forward and take space. So Talon Esports caught between a rock and a hard place. They are losing 2 players at the worst time. Kellen comes back, primals, but the fight is over. Double support ultimates anyway from O2 Plus means basically impossible for Talon. And now I feel like we're repeating Blizzard World, and honestly, I would give Talon a little bit more possibility of winning here if, you know what, the payload distance is reasonable. I was going to say the payload distance didn't look like it was enough, but this is okay. This is just barely within the realm of workable for Talon Esports. So if they can, a fuller hold is possible, but based on what we saw in Blizzard World, I'm not holding my breath.
I think that's a reasonable assessment, right? Like, there's a bit there. There's something in the same way that 82% or 81% of percentage accrual was something for Talon on their defense. But it would have to be a hell of a defense, right? As it is, it would already have to be a defense that I dare say is better than both the offenses we've seen in these last 2 maps and, of course, the defense we saw on Blizzard World. So, Talon now just actually having been their map pick, may yet just be feeling a little bit of regret, perhaps. O2 Blast, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Rolling out the gate from currently on the Widowmaker. I do expect that to change in a moment.
Even the opening damage coming through him, and Jimbin's just really working that high ground. Kellen doesn't give it up, but Heesang's forced to back away very quickly. It's the difference between damage up as well. Jimbin's got 42 charge, Kellen has 27. That's because Jimbin was cleaving 2 members while Kellen was only hitting Jimbin. So there's that 20% difference. Now onto the high ground, buying a lot of space and time. The payload is already in the archway, just off the back of Jimbin, controlling high ground twice.
The only silver lining here for Talon is that Vigilante is decently ahead of Finn, though that gap could get closed. Vigilante really needs to get a nano boost available, maybe even just to rescue Kellen, who is still taking a lot of hits here. Has it available now.
And how quickly does Talon want to pull the trigger? They don't know what the status of Finn's nano is. Obviously, we're looking at a sub 1 minute nano on the defense, so pretty standard. Should be the case for Talon to successfully do most times. Good damage from Heesang. That puts a lot of pressure on Max. In fact, that's a kill.
Yep. Develop able to get the last shot across to crack Max in the skull. That's going to give O2 Blast a bit of pause, and it's going to buy Talon some critical seconds as well. Pulse Bomb Stick, very nice. Actually will survive. Look at that. Junbin may yet scrape out of this one alive, especially with the pressure coming in on the other side onto Heesang. He actually has to back away lest he lose his life. O2 Blast back at it.
That's huge from Jimbin. I mean, maybe lucky there as well. The damage barely not going to be enough to get the kill. Puts him on 1 HP. Heesang can't clean him up. I think Heesang thought he might have gotten that kill, but Jimbin finds a health pack. This round for Ultra Blasto is going poorly. Finn Vindime down. Jimbin sleeping and proper to follow means Ultra Blast to reset. And now 2 minutes remaining. Talon have got a little bit more space fought for them. Even though Heesang dies, he does respawn fast as a Tracer. It's fine, he'll get back into action.
That he does. It's going to be very important that he does, because otherwise O2 Blast would be seriously threatening to just kind of run Talon over. They do still have the ultimate advantage. A lot of that was Vigilante at the nano boost. They got good mileage out of it, along with solid positioning, and now develop on the defense with the Deadeye. It slows O2 Blast down, most critically.
Also, away.
Yeah, exactly. Just wastes Junbin's Primal Rage, but Kilo finds the second one onto Heesang. No sooner had he got back to the fight, he has deployed the farm as well. Junbin super low, just barely staying alive. Kellen may not be so lucky. Attack and Max both in the thick of it. The nano ends up getting committed onto Max for the extra damage output. The rally running as well now as the grab is there from Attack, but it's actually Kellen who goes down. Finn may be super low, but he stays alive. The Bionate from Vigilante not enough, has to try his own nano boost now onto Chorong. No other suitable targets in his highlight as the grab up onto Vigilante is going to dispatch of him. Chorong now in a world of hurt, going to go down off the side as Junbin jumps on his head. O2 Blast, they lose a few, they get slowed down, but they certainly do not get stopped. And now we are all tied up.
It was honestly really good from Finn towards the end there. As you see the sleep coming on Attack was the one play that Talon had, was the grab. Kellen dies immediately, so they don't have the cleave damage inside the grab. The Bionade coming through from Finn over towards Talon is like everything just ruining them. And what we can see is, yeah, O2 Blast are not going to get this A attack done super clean. They're going to lose a lot of time, but they will get it done. If it's a full hold from O2 Blast, even if it takes them 3 minutes to get the attack in there, they still win that map. And this is why I'm looking at this as a bit of a mirror, a bit of a, a redo of Blizzard World. It's almost an exact copy of what we saw in Blizzard World, where you had the full hold coming on through, and Talon's only options go for the fuller hold. The biggest difference here is that Talon plays a more acceptable comp on the defense, where you're not going to play Brawl. Let's be honest, you're really susceptible to fire and flies and Dorado, so you're going to play more of a dive. Heesang does decently, puts the pressure to Junbin. They don't really clean him up too many times. Kellen's been dying a lot today. I'm going to be really honest with you. We haven't seen too much Junbin on the Winston because it's mainly been Yahoo on the Winston. But what we are seeing on a Junbin today is, it's been a higher output than Kellen. And that's not just in a 1v1 in a vacuum capacity. There's a team factor there as well. Kellen's taking more damage because the DPS from O2 are probably outputting more damage. But Junbin's dying less. He's staying alive in other situations. And I think Finn has been, especially on the Dorado, really putting in some pain versus Vigilante. Despite the nanos coming on through, the Bionades, the Sleep Darts landing from Finn have been excellent. Proper is still going to be Proper, but he doesn't even look like the biggest carry today. Proper doesn't even look like the guy that's just putting Talon into the dirt. Usually Proper will be the person that really puts the pain on the other team. And when you don't even need Proper to be that person, that's a scary O2.
It's really impressive stuff. Just to sort of add on a little bit to Junbin as well, we've seen several times where he is really known his limits to absolute perfection. Had the bubble ready, jumped away with just a sliver of health. Like, it looks like he is about to die, but actually he knows that he has set himself up to be perfectly safe. He's using that to pull back. They're often charging up a whole ton of nano boost off that. So there's that dichotomy between tanks getting low and healers getting ultimate charge, just to sort of point out the kind of the microcosms that are going on here. But when all said and done, I got to say the first two were close. The second two have, I would dare say, been very O2 Blast one-sided. However, they have both been very similar, as you kind of pointed out, the parallels between Dorado and Blizzard World and how they played out, but also obviously there's a little bit of similarity in just the game mode as well. As we move back away from the Escort and Hybrids, we'll have to see if the pendulum swings back the other way just after this break. Welcome back then, ladies and gentlemen. We are all tied up. We're an even 2 for 2 right now. And I have to say, I'm more than a little bit surprised because the first two maps of the night, as I kind of pointed out, we were running extremely even, with Talon barely kind of edging out both those first two maps. The second two, totally different story. Not only to O2 Blast start turning things back around, they turn things back around in a huge way, both being essentially full holds on their defensive halves, then pretty comfortable looking attacks on their offensive halves. And overall, I mean, if that trend continues, I don't see much life left in this for Talon. However, as we move back onto map modes, more in the vein of control, I think that's where the light maybe shines for Talon still.
Talon need to go Nepal here. They need to force a brawl mirror and take O2 down that way because that's the one area where, look, yeah, you can say Lee Jung was reasonably close, but I think you go to Nepal, could be a different story here. Lee Jung was ever so slightly even more favored for Talon Esports. You look over towards Anubis, that to me came down to a single time back phase. The actual regulation was a 3-second difference, so very close from both teams. The two maps that would just blow out to Blizzard World and Dorado, obviously with the full holds into the into the attacks into the full holds. It's not like a blowout on the offense. We've seen more one-sided games where you have a full hold into a one attempt, which is not what this is. So there's still a good chance for Talon Esports to bounce back, and I expect map number 5 here on a control to be that kind of map. Also expecting that Talon should be moving over towards not Talon, rather O2 Blast should be moving over towards substitutions. Wouldn't be surprised if this is where Sanguina comes back in. This is maybe where, let's say, Although comes back in as well. So you're not going to see the same O2 roster that just dominated Blizzard World and Dorado. That's going to be a bit of a reset that's much required for a team like Talon to find a bounce back.
And as it happens now, second time in a row, Talon are having to pick that map. As you can obviously see, Nepal, you've already talked at great length about it. And yeah, the brawl absolutely, I think, is the go-to here. That is maybe the one place where we could say, look, O2 Blast would, even if they're not bad at brawl, they'd certainly rather not play brawl if they can ever avoid it. And with that being the case, that's got to be where Talon kind of hang their hopes in this.
I also addressing compositions really quickly here as well. I mean, looking over towards O2 Blast first of all, so Kilo's gone, all those in. Vindime gone as well, Sanguina's in. Part of the reason why Yahoo might be playing in this particular map is because of the Rhine. So otherwise, Jimbin has been maybe even the pick for O2 Blasters, who they want to be the starting main tank over Yahoo. If it wasn't for the Rhine, Jimbin probably would be playing currently. But yeah, it's going to be a bit of a shake-up now because O2 Blast changed out 3 members of their team, so 50% of the roster is going to be different for this. You know, going the opening fight. Both symmetrical damage, good wall coming through from Although to start things out with.
Solid start, all things considered, as the threat is there and finally confirmed upon it as Kellen goes down. And now just trying to chase down a little bit more to get the rundown onto Developer is traded with Crawford, but the real story is Max falling and O2 Blast going to get the first rotation onto the point fairly comfortably there as well.
And yeah, and then that's just going to be O2 Blast arriving at, I think, the juncture of the middle of the map, or the top middle of the map really early. See Max, the first person there, going for the off angle. Great wall from Although again to really cut Talon off and proper really unleashing the damage and the pain. So O2 Blast will collect the first point. It'll be Talon Esports on the comeback, and typically it has been a lot more of O2 Blast making the comeback on, control as far as Lee Jung Tower goes, and the other way around. Talon's still looking for an entry here. Vigilante this time is actually quite far away from the Matrix compared to Finn, whereas previously on Lee Jung, Vigilante was much closer.
Now, first of all, the ice walls, no surprises there. That actually has forced Talon a fair chunk away off the point. No one isolated though. Kellen comes straight in. Immortality fielded us back to help keep him alive while they're healing in. Big damage coming through onto attack, and they're just struggling to push their way back in now. I think Vigilante's wall somewhere.
There it is. Wall comes through, the window comes on down, the wall from the Prophet does come in as well, but this is going to actually be the Blizzard making the difference. He's saying, finds a Blizzard before Although does, the Blizzard is absolutely going to just chalk up, rock up O2, late sound barrier, just catching up to save them. So far it looks like O2 Blast is fine.
Yeah, attack does go down. Second bound here is Kellen now stunned up. They do actually trade with Yahoo. Actually, Kellen's still staying alive in all this. This maybe slipped away to safety as they pop Sanguinar and Z-Mech Max. And actually, this might be enough for Talon to start coming back. Develop barely squeaking away out from that Blizzard. The Blizzard probably helped stabilize this for O2 Blast here potentially, but I gotta say, it's coming down to the last here, 75% already.
Develop comes back on a Doomfist here, so Talon haven't given up on this fight. They're still in it. They have a flare. They have a trade. Finn pops down the window. The attack to try and counter coming through with this flux. They can't quite find any members. Looking for two. Catches the two required and might even get the kill to Yahoo.
Yeah, that's going to be just enough to help secure it. But I got to say, O2 Blast, I mean, for what looked like a Talon win, O2 Blasts really forced that one out to its longest. 82% accrued for them. If they can pick up one fight here, they could well just pick up the entire map, but they are in a rebuilding phase.
I think a lot of this came down to the fact that, yeah, O2 Blast do lose one. After Talon pop both their window down, they pop the Vigilantes and Matrix right. Follow that up with Heesang coming through in the Blizzard, really big plays. Sanguinar Sound Barrier finds mega high value now, although looking for a freeze, looking for isolation from Talon, they get it. Here comes up Blizzard from Heesang, though it needs to make the trades happen.
Absolutely it does, and it's just kind of accomplishing nothing. Everyone kind of sitting tight, Max happy in that immortality field. Yahoo's taking some chunks. They need to finish him off. That's going to be a critical find, but nope. The healing at his back, the wind's still in their sails as now they force their way in. Talon have managed to get that respawn back in from attack, but O2 Blast have re-grabbed the point.
Wall coming on through as well. Kellan looking for Shadowcat. They can break the wall. They can break the shield, rather, of Yahoo. The Shadow can't be found, but Kellan's in trouble. Sound Barrier saves them.
Absolutely has to commit, ends up committing rather both the immortality field and the sound barrier. It is both those immortality fields now gone and used up. Sanguinar nearly there on a sound barrier, but it's not quick enough to save Finn or Max's mech. Will save the pilot of Max as they continue to collect kills though, and at 99%, that sound barrier from Sanguinar ends up being just the medicine needed for O2 Blast. Late Blizzard there from Heesang, but nobody alive to follow up on it, and the first point will go the way of O2.
This is where O2, you know, they're able to get the early advantage, and neutral flight goes their way. They have the slight advantages in terms of ultimates. We noted Finn having the Matrix before Vigilante does. It does definitely make a difference there as well. On top of that, you know, all those getting this Blizzard in time, really good walls coming through. Really impressed with the way all those been using walls to block out Talon. You see, you know, it's pretty standard that when a window does come down, use the wall to block it out, but I mean, Vigilante's just finding so little because of that specifically from all those, just always having the great timing on it. Beyond that as well, Proper and Develop both coming back on Doomfist. Wouldn't be surprised if that happens again. Both teams are very keen to be playing the Symmetra, and once the Photon Barrier is used, both of these, you know, plays in the Sims do come back on the Doomfist. Now, Proper, you know he's got a Doom. Develop, I wouldn't have considered to really be much of a Doom play, but here we are. He's really having to pull that through.
O2 Blast already have a massive advantage coming into this one.
Yeah, of attack trying to work the off angle here. I mean, at this stage of Talon trying to approach, although can just lock them out with decently placed wall. I don't know if Heesang can do the same here. He needs to try and lock at least one player on the side. We'll try and do that, then lose Develop.
Oh, man. Okay, that is at least a trade. It's a 1-for-1, a very specifically matched 1-for-1. Now both the mortality fields down as well. O2 Blast have the opening app at least, but a charge down onto Yahoo puts him in the dirt. And with that, Talon clean pickups there as O2 Blast kind of had their attention split. They had a couple of members still capping the point while a couple pushed forward. And they end up being stretched just a little bit too thin.
I think the important thing there, the difference is, here we go, this is where Kellan kind of wakes up. 5 maps deep into the series, you start to see Kellan really throw his weight around, and yes, sure, your Develop goes down, but Kellan's the one that kills Proper. Kellan has full control over the point at that stage, forces Yahoo out, swings so hard at the hammer, finds their shadow in time, double in the mortality, well, Matrix will come through, mortality fields will come to follow. Talon pops the first one.
Bit of a teleported play, Develop trying to get an off angle, but no signs of life. Proper taking chunks, goes down. Heesang is the follow-up hit, nicely bound. Shadow coming across from Kellan, slowing O2 Blast a little bit, but nothing too dynamite just yet. Yahoo, though, threatened. They've traded for Heesang. Yahoo finally goes down, but by the time he has, it's been Heesang and attack. Talon, though, trading blow for blow, and remember there was that early kill that got to Proper, who's only just about to come back on a Doofus, but O2 Blast, they commit into this. They got a sound barrier, they forced Chorong to match for sure, and now you got Proper on that Doofus, although gets the Blizzard out, but nothing to be gained from it, and he himself dead, so Heesang could maybe go for his own one down if they really feel threatened, but they're going to try and avoid it as it is. O2 Blast still losing members, and not really getting enough in the trades.
They can't quite catch Proper in the Flux, but maybe that's okay. Not a good wall from Heesang out, considering it really did screw Attack's Flux up, but they will still win the fight regardless. Rest of Ultimates coming on through, Develop still alive, most important. When I say Proper needs to get more, yeah, you got Vigilante, but the most important player that needs to go down there is Develop. If you're Proper, your primary goal needs to be to kill the Symmetra at all costs. If you trade 1-for-1, it could still be good for your team. Here comes the Flux from the other side.
O2 Blast have been scrapping at like half strength for so long now, and it's slowly starting to work. The downside is it means Talon have accrued a whole chunk of percentage. Shatter across, by the way, collects Max. Now Talon, Wallace ends up stopping it from hitting any kind of target, but they are collecting the last few kills necessary, and I feel like O2 Blast maybe did themselves dirty a little bit by not just committing to a reset some 30 to 40% ago. Instead, we find ourselves at 99%. O2 Blast nearly kind of gave themselves an advantageous situation, but we're never truly stable enough, and Talon were never truly threatened enough.
I think the big difference here for me is the fact that, yeah, okay, Talon do come in late for that initial cap, and very similar to what we saw in Village, is Talon late twice in a row. That's not ideal at all. You need to see Talon come onto the fight for the neutral on exactly par, exactly when O2 Blast is going to be there as well. You cannot have a situation where he's saying is behind, but despite that, they find the opening. They get Kellen onto the point. He's swinging really hard. He kills proper. They lose Develop, but Kellen's on point. He's the guy doing the most damage, pushes Yahoo away, and from there, Talon starts snowballing. Develop is live the entire time. Proper switches over to a Doom after knowing that his Symmetra has kind of failed. And Develop is never forced to go over to a Doom, and I think that's the biggest difference. I think if you have Talon keeping Develop on Symmetra as long as possible, not having to be forced to go to a Doom, that's when Talon will find the value.
And now as we have to roll out into Sanctum, this is where we can see Proper kind of over onto the Hanzo. Interesting Talon choosing not to run it. Actually, we've seen a fair bit of Hanzo over on the Sanctum map, and Finn going to go down early.
Look at Develop again.
Oh, this is absolutely nuts. Develop just going right off.
And this is the thing as well. I mean, he's so well protected. I think, you know, Prop has to start thinking about the Doomfist already. He has to start thinking about how he can really penetrate the Talon front or back line to try and find Develop in the mix. Develop is stuck in the middle of the stack. He's in the pocket. You know, if this was American football, and he's just completely decimating. He's completely untouched. 60% of damage there. Talon Esports will have, even coming into the next fight, and Matrix pretty quickly. Finn dies, so on 36%, not ideal. Proper has no off ankle, but there it is. Develop gets too greedy.
Yeah, super important. They do actually find the trade though, but with attack going down, now Vigilante as well. This is O2 Blast's window for sure. This is their moment. Get control of the point and hopefully not end up giving it up. They need to dislodge Talon for goods. Talon are backing away. It should be O2 Blast tapping, but it's taking a little bit of time. And now, although is over the edge, this is not going to be as clean as maybe O2 Blast were hoping.
Yahoo still gets Kellen down, despite Kellen dropping down a shatter, so one of the hottest shadows that we've seen, and Talon will slowly lose this fight as Yahoo is still alive, gets the cleanup, finish Sanguinar there. A lot of this comes down to the fact that Develop died super quick, so yeah, I'm going to repeat myself by saying Develop got too greedy that he looked for the 1v1 versus Proper, and Proper instantly shut him down with a well-placed headshot. That puts Talon up against the wall very quickly at the start of that fight, and that's something that Talon can't afford to have happen to them when they want to be snowballing.
And now as it happens, Proper is the ultimate, not that that's the most impactful. Sometimes through the Amp Matrix it can get a surprise if not done, but actually, yeah, Sanguinar just kind of getting one off the edge, slows Talon down. That's going to allow O2 Blast to even up the percentage on this point.
Heesang was looking towards Blizzard as well, and that means Talon's entire offense is gone. Another way to look at that fight would be to say that despite the Finn and Matrix coming on through, O2 Blast only got one kill, so it's not the best, but everyone else is fairly close to ultimates, that it might not matter. Although it's going to have the Blizzard available before Choron can have in the sound barrier, and in fact, Heesang might even be able to drop a sound barrier fast before Sanguinar gets anything done.
Max in trouble there, has to sort of loop around the backside, but instead actually it's Proper caught in a confined space. Or rather, sorry, Develop caught in a confined space. Proper finding him there, doing the catching. At the end of the day, O2 Blast, a little bit of tunnel vision onto Max, ends up costing Talon dearly.
This is going to be where Dragon Strike can find its uses as well. This is why Hanzo gets played on Sanctum. There's a lot of small areas where Dragon Strike has high value, small narrow lanes. One of the few maps where Hanzo specifically played for the ultimate, as well as off-angle value that we saw there. Now Talon is still kind of reeling off the loss from a couple of fights ago. Again, they were snowballing, and now they've been snowballed. They need to find a lot of value on these ultimates. Here we go. Flux comes in.
Oh, a nice shatter turns into an environmental there. Nicely picks up already as Develops down. Here we go. Big charge off the edge. Yahoo's taking Kellen with him, but that's because O2 Blast. No, they've still got Max. Still got a sound barrier. Scrapping Heesang off on this balcony. He's done for, and there's just nothing left on the point itself. O2 Blast are a little lean, mind you, but Talon don't have anything really. I believe it's actually just Chorong there, and without him, it's going to be O2 Blast securing it. So there we go, turning things around now on the control mode as well. O2 Blast putting us to match point.
And now this is where things get really kind of dangerous for a team like Talon Esports, because I gotta say, not only is it their third map pick in a row, but I think this was going to be the most impactful map. They're going up against, O2 Blast other roster, their alternate roster with, the other three members that normally wouldn't be here. They're going up against an O2 Blast in a compositional matchup that O2 Blast haven't been super comfortable with on the past. You're seeing, I think, Talon come through in their best shape on a map like Shrine, where Develop just completely goes off, isn't forced to swap off. The symmetrical damage is massive, but once they lose presence, the way they did on Sanctum, with Develop just forcing the 1v1 when he doesn't need to, and it's not just that one play that costs them, but it really puts them behind a lot. And when you start getting put behind O2 Blast and they start having point control, Hanzo being played by proppers all over the map, you get killed by the Dragon Strike the next time. You don't get to play your Photon Barrier, and things go from bad to worse. You're looking for fights, you're behind, and suddenly it's 99%. And it's just going from bad to worse there.
Yeah.
Retaking a Symmetra really sucks. Holding a point in Symmetra much stronger. And Talent Esports, they took the foot off the pedal just a little bit, and it ends up that they couldn't get the vehicle rolling again. They couldn't quite get their truck moving, and they lost a map that honestly I thought was very winnable for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's almost like, the saying there's no overtaking on Monte Carlo, and they just kind of fell behind as they went for a pit stop, never got back in front. Them's the brakes. And with that now, I'm starting to question Talon's longevity in this series, shall we say? Because you
Mhm.
start to question, look, where do they even take it next? They've already very resoundingly struggled on both the hybrid and the escort. Not that I would say either map was like going to be hugely favored for Talon or anything. If anything, Blizzard World is a map we've actually seen O2 Blast perform consistently very well on. But that being beside the point, actually, Blizzard World was O2's pick anyway. Yes, I'm remembering that
Yeah, yeah.
correctly. So yeah, that's sort of being beside the point. Like I don't know that there's anywhere in particular Talon can take O2 Blast where you're gonna now say, yeah, okay, this is actually going to
Kings Row.
help give them any kind of advantage. Like Kings Row, yeah, but Kings Row in the same sense as take them to Nepal for control. Well, that didn't work.
The
What have you
problem
got
is
left?
the problem is if you take, let's say you take O2 to control. Sorry, it's over to King's Row, and you play more brawl. And this time, you win. O2 Blast get the pick. It's map 7. We
Yeah,
go to an escort. That escort map is going to be Watch Point Gibraltar, almost
yeah,
guaranteed, and that's
yeah.
going to be another good map for O2 Blast. So at this point, I mean, you need to see not only Talon win on their own map picks, but they got to start winning on some of O2's map picks as well.
Precisely.
Just like O2 has started to do. O2 has definitely won. They've won what, two map picks now of Talons. So it's match point for day number one, obviously. And if you need a bit of a refresher on how the format works, winning today doesn't win you the grand final. You have to win two, first to 3 days of the grand final to actually take the whole grand final. And if it's a 1-1 in terms of one team wins today and the opposite team wins the other day tomorrow, then we go to a sudden death at the end of tomorrow. So, but for now,
Yeah.
it's looking like O2 Blast are going to be comfortably taking day number one, because not only are they winning where they were normally winning now, but they're also winning where you thought Talon would probably winning. They're winning Nepal. It's like if you can't even beat, if you're not beating O2 Blast on a map like Nepal, it becomes very difficult to take them anywhere.
Exactly, and I mean it's what we were talking about once again. Like this is a test of consistency above all else. Look, I think we could still see a turnaround here for Talon. I'm certainly not going to count it out, but like you said, at this point, it's looking like O2 should be able to take out day one. And because this grand final format is more a test of consistency than it is explosivity, well, look at this point, O2 Blast already have the consistent record of beating these other top four, top five teams. They've already done it now in a row to Runaway, followed by T1, followed by CC. And if they win tonight, then they will have actually beaten Talon as well. And at that point, yeah, you've still got one more series to play where Talon can maybe even it up and actually take us to that tiebreaker. But at that point, I look at the consistency of the winning record for O2 Blast, and I would count them as the favored one for day two, regardless, unless we see something absolutely
Mm.
dynamite here from Talon to close this out somehow. I'm starting to see the road ahead get increasingly unclear for the Pacific upstarts.
Fun fact as well, by the way, Talon has not taken, well, rather, they didn't take a single point on Blizzard World or Dorado. They did get Shrine here on the poll, but it's been a while. It's felt like it's been a while since Talon has even taken a single point. So they've at
Yeah.
least broken that. But beyond it, I mean, we still need to see what Talon are going to do about this next map. I suspect it will be again a King's Row. If it's not that, it's Eichenwalde. Could Eichenwalde be good? Possibly. At this point, we don't have enough data on Talon Esports to know what the preferred maps are.
Yeah.
What maps they have taken, O2 have not been greatly. Like you brought the conversation, O2 beating everyone else. They also beat Runaway, by the way. And funny enough, Runaway has been the most
Mhm.
difficult game that O2's played in the playoffs,
Yeah,
despite that
so
being the
far.
earliest one. That was their what Seed 4 versus Seed 5 game, and that was the hardest one. It was an 8-map series that went down to the wire where Runaway could have won that one. And since there, they've had a 4-1 versus T1, a 4-2 versus CC that was missing Spectra. So unfortunate for CC, but them's the breaks. O2 will take that and go to the grand finals. And now in the grand finals, it's
Yeah.
like they uh before it was more like a storyline, like, oh, they could make this miracle run happen. But as you're seeing, the 3-2 lead that O2 Plus have accrued now on day one of the grand finals is becoming more and more of a
Mhm.
reality.
And look, I'm not going to count out the notion that Talon pick up a map here and we go to a tiebreaker and maybe then actually O2 Blast still win it. They get the 4-3. Look, that would at least be similarly close to what we saw against Runaway. Obviously, it's rare enough to have an 8-map series. I feel like I'm almost splitting a hair at that point if I say, oh, like actually, Runaway had a closer showing. But like, point being, actually, since the game against Runaway, there's certainly not been anything quite as close for O2 Blast. Like you said, that the 4-1, the 4-2, even if this goes all the way to a 4-3, at that point you're sort of like, well, yeah, it's the grand final. It should be relatively close, but the real story would still actually be that, look, close isn't close enough. O2 Blast and maybe just that little bit more untouchable. And as you have it, we are indeed going to go to King's Row. I feel like that's a pretty expected pickup there.
I think every single map, bar Lijiang and Dorado, was fairly expected in this series in terms of just having a good idea of where the teams want to go towards. So at this point, I might as well pick the maps for the teams. And I'm not going to bother picking a 7 because I think it's going to end 4-2 here. The momentum shown by O2 Blast has been immense. And at this stage, yeah, they did lose a point on Shrine. Beyond that, I mean, everything else has been pretty good for O2 Blast in the last 3 maps, including 2 full holds in a row. That's got to be quite scary, I think, for a team now like Talon, where you have to think about that. You have to be the defending team first, which means O2 Blast don't get to defend first and full hold you. Meaning that if O2 Blast can take this further, look, we get to see more of the map. It doesn't just end on A. In the opposite sense, could be that Talon Esports go for their own full hold here, could be successful. I mean, we've seen a lot more A gameplay than B and C for most of these maps, so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, it certainly has been the case. I almost want to actually see a B or a C on an escort hybrid, either or. I'd be happy with it. I just like, I like King's Row, what can I say? I like to see as much of it as possible. It reminds me of a home I've never lived in.
So Vindime, Jumba, and Kilo back in for O2 Blast, playing the standard roster for this type of map, teleporting straight to the high ground and taking that away from O2. I don't know if Proper wants to stay on the Symmetra, not really good in this specific type of composition. Should be on the Tracer. Once they've teleported over, now O2 Blast just need to hold this high ground as the Proper does come back on the Tracer.
Already had attack kind of guard, throw some love taps Kilo's way. He's still feeling a bit of pressure, but he is going to stay alive. Max, on the other hand, not so lucky, but good find onto Vigilante with that dynamite. Vindame needs to live here. If he does, they can maybe actually go for a res on Max if they can maybe retake some of this position. But either way, they've pulled a man advantage now with Develop going down, and now the D-Mech onto attack. I feel like the pressure has become insurmountable. Talon hemorrhaging members, O2 Blast keeping the pressure on the point. Should only be a matter of time.
And this is weird. I mean, Talon need to get onto it towards the point. You can see they're caught between a rock and a hard place. Look at the silhouettes of the O2 Blast members all the way on B currently. Talon Esports got to decide where they want to go, and they need to decide to go to the point, stop the cap from coming on through. They're going to clean up the members over towards B, and they're slowly contesting the cap itself as well. Now Talon are taking the game back in their hands.
That was impressive from O2, but it was also quite risky, like sending those 3 members forward almost as a vanguard while the Remnants kind of finished capping the point. The reality is actually there were some members of Talon still near the point. They couldn't go for it just yet, but all it took was, Develop going on absolute hair to take apart those more squishy members of O2 Blast, and suddenly what could have actually been an assured cap for them is now not quite.
Well, it's only because Develop actually got those, but he doesn't get those. It's a very different story. Talon are then struggling to clean up any members. Here they're going to get down Finn. Vigilante is going to destroy the Pulse Bomb, or at least nullify it with the Immortality Field. O2 Blast, though, still have a res available. Vindime's in the sky as a Valkyrie.
That D-Mech is decent, fighting Develop as well now. Vigilante, couple of great trades though. Closer respawns for O2 Blast as they kind of wait out the rest of the sound barrier. Chorong ends up going down, didn't have enough of that shielding left up, but Kilo still has Vindam in the pocket, still has the firing line across as O2 Blast start respawning, start actually pressuring the point itself with boots on the ground as Kilo provides fire support from the skies. The pulse bomb is slick, but the headshot is slicker, and O2 Blast on the cusp of tapping, should be able to get it across the line. The bomb with the assist as well, and there you have it.
There it is, and then this is going to be Kilo with high ground control. The disgusting headshot onto Develop was so powerful. That one definitely got to feel that one is, you know, Brawl composition continues here with the Trace, which is, you know, not really standard at Brawl, but we'll try and make it work. Now moving over towards the aggro composition, Lucio and Moira. Isang on the Trace, the more expected Trace plays. Develop goes to Sombra, slowing down O2 Blast with 3 minutes and 30 left to go. In the pick for Kellen. Fresh ultimate, so I think that's the biggest deal here is that 5 members, rather 4 members have gone to fresh new picks. Chorong's already used the sound barrier, so he's on 11. Tak has only got the self-destruct available, which is not going to be the most impactful ultimate, depending on whether they want to open up with it or not. O2 Blast have a lot of things to work with. They are going to spot the rotation, so here we go.
They just go straight in. Junbin really putting a spanner in the works. Kellen's already dead. That's so huge. Good trade though onto Junbin. Good pulse bomb stick as well. It's going to dispatch him. Chorong is now Talon. Couple down. O2 Blast having only lost the one. Junbin's going to get back in the mix before too long as well. Now attack down as well. No tags there for Talon while they wait for Kellen to come back. And by the time he's back, the rest are already dead as well.
So Talon will use whatever they can, self-destruct to play on in. They trade Junbin for Kellen, but more importantly, I mean, O2 Blast didn't have to use anything to get Kellen down. I say that it's, you know, Sigma Flux plus the fact that Finn did pop the Transcendence, but that was just by the way anyway. As Talon trying to go for this last contest, they're getting cleaned up very quickly.
Yeah, just totally on the mark there. O2 Blast quick to it, really reading the approach from Talon, and it's not like Talon had a whole lot at their disposal either, only just now coming up on things like the Coalescence, didn't have that a second ago, and that's a clean B cap all the way through for O2.
Now they do have the Coalescence, it's still going to be hard to use, and Talon's composition here is, it's kind of one note, it does one thing very well and nothing else, which is you have to run at the opponents, you have to go very quickly, you have to play this Coalescence and kind of go in a linear fashion and hope the Coalescence will give you enough healing and damage to get the kills in. But O2 Blast just need to disengage. They need to be very careful with, you know, where the plays are coming through. What a catch on the development blade. Flash into a kill.
Already a hot start there. Doesn't find anything with the Deadeye except for Tak's mech, but that's still enough, especially with Kellen going down. There's no tank capacity for the defenses. O2 Blast are on an absolute tear through these members of Talon. Now, if they can keep a lid on these respawners, they might just close this one out here. And now Vigilante was already kind of stuck on the side. He goes down late and now not getting out of the gates. These are great mines. They all had to go around the other side instead. And you've got Vindam there marking that flank attack. Super low, pretty much the only thing still holding down this point for the defensive Talon. Now it's going to be the Primal Rage of Kellen, but he's getting drilled down in spite of that. The sound barrier to the rescue, but the Primal Rages run out. It just feels like one little holdout after another, but with no serious potential for a turnaround. O2 Blast will successfully cap.
Yeah, I mean, if it wasn't for the slowdown on A, O2 Blast completely rolled through B, no contest, completely rolled through C, no contest. Talon just can't get these ults going. Again, they move over towards this aggro comp, Lucio and Moira. They have no ultimate, self-destruct only. They try and build more. Coalescence eventually becomes available, and you just see Kilo pull out the most incredible find onto Develop. I think there might have been an accident from Develop who got outplayed there. Develop walks in front of him, gets revealed, flashbang comes on through, right click for the fan, the hammer, straight into a Deadeye, which then gets a D-Mech onto attack. I mean, that's just a 2-for-1 straight away for Kilo. O2 Blast just are relentless in that offense after getting those 2 kills. This is coming off the back of, you know, what was an interesting A strat, where I still think the A strat could have worked. Due to the fact that Talon was so indecisive, it was working. They got a free tick out of that one. Pretty much got a second free tick out of that one as well, because Talon couldn't decide whether they want to attack the 3 members behind on B, go for the 2 guys capping as well. The team play by Proper and Max Proper and Junbin on the Tracer and the Wrecking Ball to catch attack over in the Alderworth Hotel, saying, well, look, Proper's in a 1v1, Junbin comes flying in, it's instantly a 2v1, the health back's been taken away from Proper. They get a 6v5, and if it wasn't for Develop going off on the Tracer and finding a couple of picks on the members on B, Talon had no idea what to do there. They were just losing on both sides of the map.
And I'm a little bit selfish, I guess, but I said I wanted to see, you know, at least a B and C somewhere on a hybrid or an escort, and part of that was because I know how good O2 Blast can be, you know, when we sort of revisit things like Blizzard World, and it's exciting to see them replicate that success on the attacking phase across King's Row. And now we have to see if Talon can come anywhere close to matching. I'm certainly not going to say that they can't, but I mean, it's not like they've had a whole lot of success attacking on either hybrid or escort tonight.
Well, this is where it gets tricky, right? Because, yeah, O2 Blast, they attack first, which means they're not going to full hold just yet, but now that they're on the defense, usually I'd say, like, yeah, what kind of time can we expect for Talon to get into the time bank? Currently, I have to say, are they going to get a time bank? Can we get an A? Can we get past A? That would already be an improvement over Blizzard World. Already been an improvement over, you know, the fourth map of Dorado as well. Jumping down. So that is an opening at 6v5.
Yeah, absolutely huge one as well. And I was going to remark that Bionade on Kellen was helping keep him honest and would maybe allow Junbin to live, but no, Hisag is there for the follow-up when Kellen can't be. And that's Talon sort of taking their rightful place around the point while O2 Blast wait for Junbin. No counter trades just yet. Proper's kind of feeling some heat here. We have Junbin back now, but the developer's already found Proper with a headshot, so O2 Blast still a man down. Now the nano boost deployed from Vigilante. Fit knows better than to throw his into a 5 versus 6. They're maybe going to try and turn it back around later. Here we go with the nano onto Junbin, but Sleep is huge with the Primal running, but no Finn still down. Max taking some heat as well, and Kellen throwing the backline into total disarray. Is going to be Talon getting a very respectable time on the cap. In fact, faster than what O2 Blast got, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they certainly made up for the mistakes of, you know, a few maps ago. We look towards Blizzard World, Dorado. They can't cap A at all, and here we go. Jumpin goes down. Proper to follow versus a headshot from Develop, and Talon are on their way. 6v4. That's barely responded to by O2 Blast. Yeah, the ultimates do come on through. Both teams will nano here. Kellen even gets a primal in there. Jumpin barely even gets back to the point in time, and it burns ultimates to do so. Like I said, with 5 minutes in the time bank, now Talon can definitely be on their way to securing something good to play for the actual time bank itself. As 228 is what O2 Blast have, and if Talon can get their roll on over towards B, you can only see something good. So it's going to be a solo grab mode, not a double.
I guess a second, that's maybe something, especially with the pulse bomb coming out. They've found one member at least, but really they want to be finding a bit more than that. Attack now has his own grab, and with Junbin slept, despite the primal, they may yet choose to give it. Indeed, they will. Pulse bomb tossed out. That's a 2 for Hisag. You do the math. O2 Blast now looking to lose Junbin as well. May yet come away alive, but it is still man advantage for O2 Blast. Trying to just close, sorry, for Talon rather, trying to just close out these last few members. Junbin finally will drop. Gonna get Max and Proper to boot. That's gonna be the card continuing to march forward.
Yeah, beautiful stuff coming through from Talon. I mean, they had the grab as well, but they have the grab and pulse, and attack will land a pretty decent one. Hisang lands it even better. Straight into it. Call it a 3-pointer. Talon Esports now. B is all but secured, as O2 Blast are trying to get any sort of semblance of defense going for it. They'll have a nano available, but they got to be careful because Kellen's going to cut them off. Kellen is going to cut them off.
There we go, deep into the backline now with the nano. Nice sleeve just to slow things down, but still O2 Blast trying to regroup around that position, and the nano boost on the Kilo not exactly getting a whole lot. They finally get attacked, that's decent, but it's traded for Junbin, and the cap comes through regardless. So now O2 Blast going to have to play damage control as they're looking to back away. Do not want to give up any more kills to Talon here on C.
I mean, I don't know why attack was so far up. It makes sense why Kellen was there, but I guess it doesn't matter for Talon Esports because they get the cap anyway, and O2 Blast do not contest in time. I assume the play would have been, yes, it's going to be Kellen holding up O2 Blast, stopping them from contesting, but Jumpin can still touch. They can still play for the cap itself, play for the defense, kill attack, and get the 6v5 going. Yeah, Talon will lose a couple members. They get the cap anyway. It's fine. Pulse bomb and Jumpin. He's got no primal, but still lives.
Barely lives at that, but it does take pressure back off the cart for a hot second. Max had to do it himself, but that's a sick grab. Clean follow-up as well with the pulse bomb and dynamite with that. O2 Blast, they're going to find their line in the sand. Talon aren't going to get the same clear sweep through B and C as O2 Blast are. That being said, Talon have a way big lead on time right now, so they could still easily match O2 Blast if they just get their feet right back under them.
Yeah, and that just all comes down to the fact that, you know, it's time bought from A. They've had more slowdown on B, they've had more slowdown on C, but because A was so quick, they're here anyway. Proper, after a couple of attempts, is going to make high ground land as the Tracer player here, looking towards the next nano, should be coming through onto Jumpin. Healer will have the bob as well. O2 Blast are pretty set. They just have to survive versus this grab, which is why you have players on high ground, players playing around the side with Hisang down. I don't think Talon want to grab just yet.
Yeah, great stuff there for O2 Blast, just slowing things down and This is where they start running down the clock. I think even if Talon were to go ahead and fight now and win, they would still only just match O2 Blast for time, and the longer this defense lasts for, the worse it gets for Talon.
Oh, that's insane.
Oh.
Develops long-range damage on this Marquis. It's like he's playing with Ash when he doesn't need to. Solo grab it to max, but he's nanoed.
Double grab, in fact, as you actually see Junman ending up down in it, and a great bio nade. It's going to force a Primal Rage for one thing, but actually attack ends up over the edge there. Unfortunately, just takes one step too far backwards. Meanwhile, proper popping off has come back already, despite that excellent shot out from Develop earlier, and goes on a tear, finishing off Kellen. The rest of these members are going to be able to get back, but this is where they lose that opportunity to match O2 Blast this time. Indeed, O2 Blast may get stopped Talon up altogether.
I mean, that was just Junban, wasn't it? Junban was using the Primal Rage, knocks attack down into the hole, and here it's very specific where you can go off the map. You can see it's just behind the card there. It's a very small square, just a couple of meters by a couple of meters, square meters rather. So it's a very small window. Somehow attack will still go down for the 4, and O2 Blast now continuing with the hold. 2 minutes remaining roughly. Talon cannot match the time back of O2 Blast at all, and they're starting to lose a lot of ultimate pressure as well.
They have committed the nano boost already, but quick commit on the Kilo Bob. Vindame does go down, but the grab also out. Now the Pulse Bob thrown in. They'll find Develop. Some trades coming through, though, as Kellen's really putting on the heat, showing his prowess once again. Max getting up and about until Kingdom Come. Junbin super low as well. In the meanwhile, Max finally drops Junbin. Even in living, it's not going to last long enough, and this is where Talon can get back underway. O2 Blast will be able to respawn before the cap comes through, though.
That's decent trades to start things out. I mean, O2 Blast actually had the player advantage for a while, but it's Kellen and Heesang, especially Kellen on the Primal Rage again. He did, despite being slept a lot here by Finn. He's kind of woken up the series late into the day. Nano boost onto Max to try and hold this defense for O2 Blast. It's all they got to work with. Max doesn't have energy. Look, he's like 10 energy, but he doesn't need it. Proper's got the damage to kills.
Yeah, solid stuff there. Barely staying alive was Max for a few critical moments, but just pumping him full of healing with Vindame and Finn. And with that, they have enough to repel Talon here, who now have less than a minute. And that's with O2 Blast about to come up on some very important ultimates.
And this is really important for Talon to be able to get it done with some time left. You don't want to be in a draw scenario here. And look, if they don't cap at all, that's going to be day 1 finish. O2 Blast would finish 4 and 2, and at least that would, you know, clear my bridge to go. Big Byron to Kellen attack. Does get purged by the bubble.
Already feeling so much pressure on the approach. It will give Vigilante a nano boost, but it also just wastes a few precious extra seconds. It's not like Talon have a whole lot else to work with. And now the pressure coming up onto Develop. They want to try and get rid of him before it even starts. Junbin slept for the time being, but aside from that, the Primal is running a little bit low with the Bionade on him. I don't know if he can actually get out safely here. Barely scraping out onto the side. The grab though in the middle. Double grabs. It's Vigilante going down first. And look at the damage coming across. Junbin stayed alive and all that. Max finally goes down. The Pulse Bomb from Heesang still to be committed. It's trade still now. Trades in theory favor the defender. Look at the Bob just raining Hellfire, but it is expired now. Junbin finds Develop, having stayed alive this entire time before finally dropping to a Pulse Bomb only just now. But can O2 Blast get some respawners out because Talon, they've barely got enough men to hold down this card.
It's going to be Kilo coming back onto a May as well. They just need to stall for as long as possible. The Nano is really important. Finn's nearly got that. If the Nano comes on through, catches a tank, catches someone important to really get the O2 Blast defense going again. Talon are going to run out of members. This rally is going to be huge. And Finn dies.
Maybe. Nope, not going to happen. Kilo tried to go cold on the point. He lasted a fair while. The rest of the team wasn't quite able to regroup around him, and that rally from Chorong getting double value to be sure. Absolutely massive. Talon barely keeping it going, but they are able to close it out. That being said, it doesn't get any easier. They only caps in overtime. Now they've got to defend for 2 minutes and 28 seconds without giving up a single tick of A.
You can see that, you know, maybe O2 Blast even realized it was over towards the end there. It seemed like Junbin was going AFK, but even if he does touch, he'd be dead. Finn desperately needed to get that nano onto somebody just to keep the fight going. If O2 Blast had reasonable enough trades in that final engagement, they played the respawn advantage there as the defenders, especially in the time back where all respawns are slow anyway. Trades at that stage massively favor the defenders, even more so than regularly. Talon Esports, I mean, big last rally coming through from Chorong as well at the exact right time, just when the team really needs to get a bit of an armor boost. AoE healing. Talon Esports will find the kills required. Big plays by, I think, both Kellen and Heesang towards the end. Heesang, especially on the Tracer, really did some real damage to get O2 Blast down. And now as we head over towards Time Bank, there's going to be 228 to get one tick, I believe. And Talon Esports have it all to do, really. Even if they get this, it's still not pretty. It's still just a draw.
And that's the thing, right? Draw being a best case scenario when you are up against the wall on match point is not what you want to be staring down the barrel of. O2 Blast have already showed their competency at capping A as it is. I feel like 2.5 minutes is plenty enough time. We'll have to see if Talon can prove me wrong.
Well, they did fail on Temple Anubis, so there's that going for them. Talon have won a time-back defense there just because O2 Blast is going to run out of time. Lost too many members on rotations. Probably going to come through on Echo here, so Talon, the fact that they decide to go towards a brawl composition could be a bad call for them.
Develop's got his work cut out for him, to be sure. Kind of the only one who can keep proper honest. So far that has been happening. Look at that. Exactly what I'm talking about. Now it's Junbin feeling the heat, but the D-Mech is there on to attack. That could be the beginning of the end as the pilot form goes down. Now Develop under pressure. Look at the bump around. He's San Kellen dead in the same breath. I think it's going to be it, Kevin. I can see the writing on the wall, written plain English or mayhaps in plain Korean. O2 Blast collect their 4 and 2 to complete the first night of our playoffs. And that too, by the way, was the first 2 of the night. When you discount that, that has been 4 in a row for O2 Blast.
Absolutely, and you say written large on the wall there. I mean, it's written in focusing beam. It's written the blood of Talon, at least for day 1 there. What an insanely powerful attack. You have Talon once again wanting to go towards the brawl defense. It gets counter-comped. You know that Fire and Echo are viable on A. And, well, O2 Blast is not going to shy away from it. It's only a matter of time. Talon, they have to find a fight. They're going to get outpoked. They know they have to get the ball rolling themselves. And it's just too difficult to do on that composition. So, unfortunately, did themselves no favors there. I would have said that, look, even if they went towards a different composition, could they win? Would still be quite hard. Time bank, having nothing to work with there. 1 tick required for O2. Where even if O2 at minimum just play the Symmetra strat again and it confuses Talon, maybe it doesn't confuse them twice in a row, but it really, if Talon don't address the cap, it's kind of all over. So um, I think the 4 and 2 was maybe a likely result, even looking back as far as Nepal. So after Nepal was done, to me, I was thinking, yeah, it'll be 4 and 2 because if you're not beating O2 on Nepal, you're probably not beating them anywhere else.
No.
But thankfully for a team like Talon Esports, it's not over. They get to go to a day 2. They get to go and try and make some adjustments overnight. They have 24 hours to get things done, try and address what went wrong today, and come back because 4 maps in a row here for O2 Blast. The momentum was powerful.
Speaks for itself, right? And yeah, comeback it absolutely will have to be. You can kind of see it writ large there. And even then, the first 2 were the closest. They were actually excruciatingly close to the point where I was starting to expect that maybe we were going to have some close maps trading back and forth, or even close maps barely edging the way of Talon. But Blizzard World just completely flipped that on its head. Absolute lockout on the defense from O2 Blast. Only 81% accrued, not even a full cap. And then a cap coming through with plenty of time to spare. Similar story on Dorado. The full hold completed without A getting capped by Talon. Nepal was a little bit closer, I will concede, but unlikely Zhang Tower, it fell the way of O2 Blast. So at that point, Talon not even able to replicate their success from the earlier control map. And as we were pointing out at the time as well, the more brawl favored map as well. O2 Blast's sort of sole point of maybe slight weakness, if you can even call it that. And then King's Row, the 2-minute 28 time bank defense is kind of all you need to know about that. And now it is, like you say, comeback. You can still come in tomorrow, absolutely rock it hot and turn it all the way back around if you're Talon, but it is a long turnaround.
And part of me believes that Talon have the capability to do so when you start looking towards the end of that series, because Nepal and Kings Row were much better maps. To me, Blizzard and Dorado were the outliers. Those are the 2 clear deficiencies shown by Talon today that need to, be reassessed back at the lab, because everything else was fine. Lijiang and Temple Anubis, they won. Nepal was competitive. Kings Row gave me a glimmer of hope as well, because not only did they cap A, but they managed to cap the entire map, especially C. They started to look quite dire, and in the overtime they got it done. Can't read too much in the time bank. They played a poor comp, I feel, versus what O2 Plus were gonna go. You have to understand O2 Plus aren't gonna match you in the brawl. They're gonna play dive when they can. And beyond that, I mean, it's a one-sided time bank anyway. We got zero time remaining versus 228. It's heavily favored for the team with the time bank there. For them not to lose, it would be a bit of a choke. So it's not all bad news as far as as far as a first showing goes on day number one and our opening first of all series here. It could have gone worse for Talon. It's an okay series, but an
Yeah.
okay series is not going to be good enough tomorrow. They need to come back massively, and then beyond that, Talon still need to then win the tiebreaker sudden death control that will
Hmm.
happen at the end of the first of four if Talon do win tomorrow.
Your super high stakes that would be, right? So Talon are going to have to get there and then keep their cool, keep their composure when we actually hit that point. If we actually hit that point, because there is just as much potential for O2 Blast to kind of come in tomorrow and just repeat the same success. And an interesting thing I think is worth noting here as well. This series is extremely similar to many others that O2 Blast have played insofar as O2 Blast kind of chronically dropped the first map. It's something we even saw a lot across the regular season. They would lose the first map and then come back across the remaining three and absolutely slam dunk their opponents. Obviously, tonight there was two maps, not just the one, but still in the overall pace of things, O2 Blast dropping a couple and then just sweeping through the rest is exactly their modus operandi right now. Yeah, if you remove the outliers in the middle there, it looks a little bit more even, but it still could well have gone the way of O2, right? Like, who's to say that maybe we would have had a more even Dorado, a more even Blizzard world, but still a winning Blizzard world and winning Dorado for O2 Blast. At the end of the day, this is exactly what O2 Blast have done all season long. And I'm not
Yep.
surprised that it's working in the finals. But look, it's only day one. Do we have any more thoughts before we leave it off for tonight?
No, I'm not at all surprised that Ultra Blast are coming in big here. They've had a glorious playoffs run. They looked really good in next Spring Cup, despite losing to CC in the finals. But you know, I think we can just chalk that up to the fact that CC, a top three team, and on their day, incredible. Spectra being back in the lineup is just crazy good. And Ultra Blast, they can be thankful that that grand final, which was also first of all, wasn't a contenders grand finals, so that at the end of the day it's like, okay, we'll come second there, but want to come first here in the contenders grand finals, and they've made the first step to getting that done. I'm a little disappointed
Yeah.
that Talon didn't show up as big as possible. I would have preferred, or I would have liked to have seen Talon at least give more during the Blizzard World and Dorado. If you're gonna be losing those maps, getting full held and then eventually getting walked over on the defense is kind of rough. And look, if you do get full held,
Hmm.
most teams don't complete a full hold. That's generally the case. So I'm not expecting them to complete a full hold, but generally you don't want to be full held there. So going 0-1 on those two maps back to back, by the way, which is the shocking part.
Yes.
Yeah, that's not what you expect out of a team like Talon.
Absolutely not, especially not in the grand finals. And, as we say, when they've had all this time to prepare against O2 Blast specifically. But look, that's beside the point, I suppose. When all said and done, O2 Blast do pick it up, but Talon definitely still have the potential. Tomorrow is going to be an absolute nail biter right down to the last if we do end up in that situation where Talon take us to the sudden death with it all to play for. I could not imagine a more fitting end. Or maybe we just see O2 Blast continue the streak of dominance they've had against every other top four team and truly confirm themselves as top dog. But for tonight, we are all done and dusted. Be sure to watch tomorrow. That's the one that counts. And thank you very much for tuning in tonight. Good night.